I got a top 5 Paul Dano movies for you today if you want them.
Paul Dano is very underrated.
Exactly, and I want to talk about him.
Yeah, I think he's underrated just because his look only works for certain roles. He's become a character actor. He's gonna play the Riddler, no?
I had him as a leading man in one of my favorite movies called Ruby Sparks.
I've never heard of that film. And I'm a Paul Dano guy. I got to look that one up.
It's his best movie, but it's only number 2 on my list.
All right. We were theorizing last week when all this stuff was coming out that Trevor Bauer, in all likelihood, has thrown his final pitch for the Los Angeles Dodgers, maybe even in baseball. A week later, we still feel that way, yes?
Well, I would say that for this season, I don't think Trevor Bauer pitches again. If the DA in Pasadena does not press charges, and somehow in a civil suit it comes out that this woman was lying or that someone else did it to her, I'm not saying that happened. I'm just giving you scenarios under which in our system you are innocent until proven guilty. That's on the criminal side. If you're going to lose on the civil side, it's a preponderance of the evidence, meaning is there a way that a jury will buy the fact that Trevor Bauer did this to this woman but not rising to the level of criminal activity, if he is found to not have been involved at all, that it wasn't even he who was texting her, he didn't have sex with her, it wasn't him, I think Trevor Bauer comes back to the Dodgers and pitches. But of course, I don't believe any of that to be the case.
Now, you probably don't know all the details in Trevor Bauer's contract, but are there character clauses that protects the baseball club from stuff like this? Say this is a very real situation for Trevor Bauer, and he's guilty of everything that he's being accused of right now. How can the Dodgers get out from under this contract?
Oh, you don't need a character clause when you're convicted of a felony. So let's start by that. That's character clauses and action clauses like don't go skydiving and don't play racquetball. That's different part of the uniform player contract than the part that says don't get convicted of a felony. Now, being charged with a felony, that's not enough. You got to be convicted in most contracts because anyone, as you know, can be charged with something. And we don't want to be able to, as much as you'd like to if the player's not performing, you don't want to be able to get out of paying someone just because they're charged with the crime. But if you're convicted, that is a means to be able to cancel the entire contract.
Yeah, these waters are murky because on the surface, using previous history, it's hard to get a full conviction in this spot. So what happens if the DA decides to not press charges, but there is a civil suit? Then what do the Dodgers have on their hands in terms of contract?
You have to wait to see what happens with what MLB does during its investigation, because if there is no criminal charge, MLB is still going to investigate. They have an entire department that does nothing but investigate things like this. And if they find, whether by interviewing witnesses, by interviewing the woman, by interviewing Trevor Bauer, if they find that he has violated the policy that MLB has with the union, actually, an agreed upon policy on domestic violence, they can suspend him for a year, for half a year, for 2 years, for 300 games. They could suspend him for the rest of his contract, and he would not get paid.
Dodgers are still playing pretty good baseball, all things considered, with this hanging over their clubhouse. That division is pretty insane. It's always fun when there's a division where everybody's playing sort of above board. Everyone's in the fight for the playoffs. Usually there's one straggler at the bottom, and that's become the Diamondbacks, who, what a weird team that's been this season to follow. When the division is that good, is there usually a knee-jerk conversation in the offseason to be a little bit more fair to those competitive teams? I mean, you were a victim of it in the NL East. There were some very good NL East teams. It was a very good division for the most part while you guys were running the Marlins. Did you ever just pound the table and say, this is really unfair that we have to play these guys in this division? What about restructuring the postseason?
Well, we've always said that, right? When you don't play well within your division, you always say it's not fair to have such an unbalanced schedule. And when you're doing well against your division and beating up on the bad teams, you say this is awesome because we're never out of the race. But I would always couch it as we're always in it, because if we're behind the Braves and we get to play them 10 more times and we're only 6 games back, I got to say, hey guys, all we have to do is go 8-2 and we're tied with the Braves for first place. So there's always math that you can do when you're playing the team you're catching. But I just would tell you that I don't agree at all, and nor do people in baseball agree that the Dodgers are playing well by any stretch. They were expected by people to win 115 games, maybe challenge the Mariners or the Yankees as being some of the best teams in history, and they're just not that. They have great depth, which is nice, but they don't have the drive anymore because they won the title last year, albeit in a shortened season. And now with Clayton Kershaw on the DL, with Trevor Bauer on paid administrative leave, their pitching is actually shockingly thin. I would take the Marlins rotation over the Dodgers rotation today without a doubt, even with Buehler there. And you see the Marlins have won 3 in a row against the Dodgers in Miami this week. And if you look at that team, that does not look like a World Series team to me. So I think that people who think the Dodgers are going to cakewalk to their second ring in a row are just wrong.
Well, they're the 4th best team in Major League Baseball, so maybe the answer on their form is somewhere in between what you're saying and what I was saying. Yeah, they're struggling against the Marlins, but prior to that series with the Marlins, they were on a bit of a hot streak. Mm-hmm. I want to transition now because I feel like I'm losing people with baseball, even though it's all-star time, and this is the time that baseball is starting to get the sports calendar to themselves. Actually, on that note, one last baseball question. Outside of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, was there any thought inside of Major League Baseball, promotionally speaking, a marketing strategy to really take advantage of the fact that the sports calendar really works in this sport's favor during the dead months of all the other major sports?
You know, it's funny you say that because COVID was really devastating for baseball when all the sports were together and people started saying, why don't we change the calendar? And MLB panicked. Because if the NBA and the NHL and even football, if they changed the calendar, what baseball loved was having the summer to themselves. And the reason they love that is that drove their TV deals, because all of these networks had nothing else to show. There was nothing else live during the summer. And that's what drives up the value of the TV deals. And that's what drives up the value of the teams. So the far bigger concern for baseball is if other sports start playing when they do. They're okay with having the All-Star games themselves. That's all fine and good. But the real issue is October. And who is going to be competing with them in October? Is it just the NFL, or is all of a sudden going to basketball change their whole calendar, which was rumored during COVID? So baseball does whatever it can, but what they really need to do is shorten the season. And I think in the new collective bargaining agreement, it's going to become a much bigger issue than you realize, going from 162 maybe to 154.
Is that championship hangover thing real? Because you mentioned just sort of passively that the Dodgers have lost their drive to win a title because they finally got the all-elusive World Series while Kershaw was there. But I just saw the Tampa Bay Lightning win a second Stanley Cup in, I think, 282 days, which is awesome for that fan base. I don't. Is this quantifiable, a championship hangover?
Yeah, so I've spoken to players about this, and I've watched it happen in a clubhouse. I watched it happen to us in 2004, where we basically had the same team except for Pudge and Derek, but we certainly had a team that should have done better in 04 than it did, though we were competitive all the way through the year. But the difference is when you have won a title, the following year when you're not playing well, you think that you can snap your fingers and win a game no matter what, no matter when. And when you lose a few, you say, no problem, we can win tomorrow, everything's fine. But that not just drive, but that incentive, it would shock you that executives and fans want to win more than players do. And that's a general statement, but I would say 90% of the time that's correct. And it's really not so different than other businesses where the people who own the businesses are far more interested in the P&L, if you will, than the employees who work in the business who don't have an ownership stake. So I'm not shocked to say that. It shouldn't be shocking news to you, but it is not uncommon for players to view what they do as a job where they get paid. And it's better to win, there's no doubt, but you lose, you lose. You know, I speak to some players who don't get named to the All-Star game. Guess what? They take 5 days off and they're just as happy, if not happier.
I actually worked on a video at Sports Illustrated over the pandemic about championship hangovers in the NFL. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I talked to 2 NFL stat people who both found that teams that made the Super Bowl actually, on average, were more successful the following year than the teams that didn't make it into the playoffs. So, like, statistically speaking, in the NFL, there isn't really a hangover. If you win 12 games one year, you're more likely to make the playoffs the following year than if you win 8 games one year. So I don't know. I don't know how that relates to baseball, but
that makes no sense to me, because of course that's true. Because if you've won 12 games the year before, that means you're a good team. If you've won 4 games, my guess is a team that's won 4 games the next year is less likely to win 12 than the team who's won 12 games the year before.
I mean, it's common sense. So, if you think that there's some, like, Super Bowl curse, this was kind of like the gist of the story. It was like, if you think that there's a curse on teams that lose in the Super Bowl to not make it the following year, statistically speaking, that's not true. There's no such thing as, like, a Super Bowl slump or a Super Bowl hangover. You're still a good team. There might be changes that are made, or you might, like, there might be extenuating circumstances where your team doesn't trade as much because they think, like, oh, we're right at the brink of winning this championship. We don't need to, sign a big player in the offseason. We're almost there. And so you might regress a little, but you're not going to miss out on the Super Bowl by any large margin. You're probably still going to make the playoffs the following year.
It is kind of common sense, because if you're a champion in a professional sport, the likelihood is you're going to be very good the very next season, even if you lose some pieces. But in baseball, it's ultra weird because teams are totally different year to year. Kansas City is really good one year. They drop off tremendously the next year. The Marlins had a slower dip, but they never got back to the playoffs. Why is baseball so weird?
Because you've got 162 games and you've got players who it's very hard to gauge what their performance is going to be year to year. And I know that sounds like a cop-out when you're a talent evaluator, but you just don't know what you're going to get. Between injury and lack of performance, you just don't know how a season's going to go. Did anyone predict that the Yankees offense would be struggling the way it is when you looked at their lineup from top to bottom? You may have predicted some injuries. You may have predicted anything, some pitching problems, but you don't assume that they're going to be in 4th place at this point in the season. You just don't. So did anyone predict the San Francisco Giants? You were talking about the NL West. Did anyone predict? No one did. They can say they did, but they didn't.
In the spirit of baseball being weird, can you explain to me why the Cubs suddenly are really bad and they suck again?
So they never didn't suck. I think it's important to note that when you go through a season, you can lose 100 games and have a stretch of 10 games when you win 8 out of 10. You can win 100 games and have a 10-game stretch when you lose 8 out of 10. Baseball is so long that you have to get away from the micro-analysis of a season. You never evaluate a player during a slump or during a hot streak. You don't evaluate a team during a winning streak or a losing streak. You have to take that out of your mind, because recency bias is what fans have. And if you are going to run a team, you cannot have that.
So they don't suck because you can't judge them during a slump.
No, they're not a good team, right? So they were not as good as they were playing early in the season. And over 162, forget last year, right? Where teams can make the playoffs over 60 games because they have a good 60-game stretch. Most teams have a good 60-game stretch during the course of 162 games. It's just a matter if you have it early last year, then you're in the playoffs. If you have it late this year, you can have a run to the playoffs. We see that every year. The Rockies were famous for that, where they would have a great September and make their way into the playoffs year after year. Not this year, I would suspect. But the Cubs, you regress to where you're supposed to be. And at the end of the season, you will see the Cubs as an 80-win team.
Yep. Thank you, David.
All right. Even though I have more baseball questions, I promise I'm going to transition now. A full week now into the NIL NCAA experience, and some schools are doing really well with this, David, at least in terms of public perception. The University of Miami, I know I'm a homer, but they seem to be leaders on this and really benefiting from the fact that they have a true veteran at the most important position that is spearheading a lot of this for the University of Miami. Your national take on how this is going and how some schools seem totally unprepared by it.
I was laughing when I read an article that there was some local gym in Miami, a guy who said he's going to spend $500,000 or $5 million over the course of 4 years.
It's Dan Lambert, I believe, from American Top Team, founder of the most influential gym in mixed martial arts, and I believe I saw him take a power bomb last night at AEW Dynamite.
You saw him personally do that?
Yeah, he got in the ring, cut a promo, and got power bombed.
Okay.
By someone called a Murder Hawk.
Is it your belief that because NIL is now a thing, that this is the first time he's dipped his toe into giving money to college athletes?
Oh, wow, that's super unfair.
I'm just asking if you think that.
Here's my take. I know for a fact college football athletes at every level, Power 5 on down, have been getting under-the-table payments. Some schools have been much better at it. It's been harder for other schools, let's say if they're in a major media market or if they have the past to actually keep up, or if they're a private institution, they can't necessarily keep up with the Joneses out in the Southeastern Conference. What I will say...
Because they're not as good, though. They're not as good at doing it. Do you know this is the same thing as the Astros and the garbage cans? Have you thought of that?
I don't think it's the same thing as the Astros and the garbage cans. I just think that the NCAA, it got too big, and it needed some of those rural schools that had economies revolving around them to continue to succeed. Conferences kept getting huge, massive TV contracts, and I just think it's easier to look the other way in the Southeastern Conference than it was to look the other way, say, in Miami when you have a persecution complex.
I don't understand how you're not seeing the equivalent with not just the garbage can scandal, but what about the foreign substance scandal? Everything gets bad when someone does it too well or too much, or it goes too far. That's all that happened with NIL. It's been going on. Everyone's acting like, hey, it just started. What a great job by the Miami Hurricanes to get money to their players. Give me a break, Mikey.
I know that there are a lot of big influential Canes fans that are licking their chops because they can finally get in on the game through proper means.
Finally.
No, I'm telling you. I mean,
they're in the game. They can be recognized is what you're saying.
Well, yeah.
They can finally get noticed and get drinks bought for them.
You can be Dan Lambert.
Be the BSD.
Yeah. Whereas Dan Lambert was the guy from American Top Team that was faceless. Now all of a sudden he's taking power bombs in the middle of an AEW ring and is having a real star turn. And you're grateful for institutions like the Wharf. I'm telling you, like Kane's Twitter is like putting out screen caps of all the sponsors right now, and it's a good look for the people that are sponsoring these players. But I'm saying that a program like Miami, let's say Miami because I guess that's my level of expertise here. There are only so many car dealerships in Tuscaloosa that can do this under the table, right? And I think the SEC as a whole met their ceiling. I don't see the SEC getting better because of this. I kind of see all the other big Power 5 conferences kind of catching up now, especially those programs that are in bigger media markets. Jess, you're a Notre Dame fan and you have your own persecution complex. Do you kind of agree that the days of the SEC running roughshod now seem like more of an upset because of NIL and because programs like Miami and Notre Dame with these big alumni bases and powerful institutions backing them can get in the game and say, well, do you want to be rich in Tuscaloosa or kind of rich in Miami?
I mean, that's a really interesting argument because you're arguing that basically NIL is going to create more parity within the system that people are arguing it would create less parity for. I guess, like, I don't know. I could see it happening. I could see it also being great for Group of 5 schools because now if you go to a Group of 5 school in a, semi-big market, you can make more money than you would have because those schools aren't the ones dishing out 6 figures under the table to get 5-star recruits, right? So I could maybe see it happening, but I also think like the SEC, there's still room for it to become more powerful because they still have those huge fan bases, and the more people that you have to make money from, like the more fans who will buy your athlete's t-shirt with their face on it, the more appealing it's going to be for an athlete to go to that school.
Yeah, they're going to look at metrics and see who's great at moving merch because players now, I saw Gabriel at UCF has his own fashion line. They want to be able to have social media metrics to be able to move merch, and they're going to look at some big schools. My big hot take in all of this is that schools that operate within historically great recruiting bases are going to do well. Ohio State's still going to do well. California schools are going to benefit from this. Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida schools are going to benefit from this because now if I'm a kid with, not the same means as most and I'm trying to provide for my family, I usually had to travel abroad to an SEC school to make the kind of dough to send back to the family. Now I don't have to venture that far from home. So I think you're going to see a lot of top recruits stay a little closer to home if I were to guess, David.
Do you think that drug dealers are upset when marijuana becomes legal, or that bookies are upset when you can bet on your phone? What's your take on that? Because I certainly have one.
That's an interesting one, because I think the more the merrier might be the answer to it.
So the way the bookies look at it is, the more people who become addicted to gambling, the better it is for them, because eventually they'll run out of credit line online, and they'll sort of filter down, so their client base is expanding. The more people who can get access to marijuana, the drug dealers say, no problem for me if they want to go to a dispensary and pick up some joints and pick up some flour, whatever they want to do, some edibles, because my client base is ever growing. Because whether marijuana is a gateway drug or whether it's not, I make my money through various ways that legalizing marijuana on its own doesn't put me out of business. All the schools who had been breaking the rules by giving money, which is what they did, and having boosters give money to players, their view of these new NIL is like they have a freedom now. It's not that they think parity's coming, because the inherent advantage they had when it was illegal, they keep that advantage when it's legal. It's just everything gets bigger. So the problem with some of these schools who are claiming they're okay with NIL, like the Power 5 schools, they're really not. Because it's going to end up costing more money, not just for them, but for their sponsors and for their boosters.
May I stop you for a second? I've done some reporting on this. Miami is super excited about NIL. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. The Miami Hurricanes athletic program, not just a football team, but the basketball program that was totally ravaged by the Adidas scandal, mind you, they are pumped about NIL.
Because it's legal now.
Yeah, they view this as a game changer, and for the University of Miami in particular, the block was a little bit hotter than most schools.
Because they got caught. Nah. Do you think the Astros want the rules changed, that you can hit garbage cans and that you can wear buzzers? They'd love that, because then it would make what they did sort of normalized.
I mean, caught. Nevin Shapiro takes a bunch of kids to Benihana, and all of a sudden, Al Golden's a failure. And
yeah, you're right, Mikey. That's all that happened in Miami is they went to Benihana. You are totally right. They had one little vegetarian fried rice.
No, the Nevin Shapiro shit was way overblown. That was just, hey, come and gawk at this, and you would look through it. It's not a lot. Jess, I'm going to bring you in before I sound more like a homer.
I was just going to say, to David's point, which I think is probably how I think too, how does it benefit Miami more than it benefits any other non-SEC school? If there is any benefit at all, it's pretty spread out across 140 FBS schools. So I don't know how it makes that big of an impact, because now NIL is legal everywhere. And the way that it was kind of unfolding was that state by state there would be an advantage. So if Florida had passed their NIL bill and California had, but Illinois hadn't, then there would be a recruiting advantage. But I still think at the end of the day, since it's legal everywhere, everyone's equal in that sense. Yes, there are bigger markets, there are bigger fan bases, so that might matter to a recruit, but a recruit is still probably going to go to the school where they feel like they have the best fit and they have a program where they can win and make it to the NFL. And if a recruit feels that way about, any school, North Carolina more than Miami, all things considered, they can still make money at North Carolina and they can still make money in Miami.
We'll put a bow on that conversation. David, I want to welcome you in on a conversation we had last week about separating art from artists, and how I found it trickier to do that with music, because once you experience a movie, that experience is kind of off in the distance, and you can only rewatch a film a certain number of times. I'm sure there are films that you'll stop on every time, but those are more isolated than when a Michael Jackson song comes on and you still feel the way you did when it came out years ago. I was watching The Patriot on Netflix, and it stars Mel Gibson, which is obviously hugely problematic. And I was wondering, see, with me, when it comes to music and certain artists that have been canceled, I don't feel like I want to go out of my way to listen to their music anymore. Do you watch Mel Gibson movies?
Yes, even though he's a ravaging anti-Semite. And here's how I do it in my own mind. I watch movies that he was in that I liked when I didn't know he was an anti-Semite, but I don't give him any new business. So I won't see anything new, but I'm still okay watching old. It is totally irrational. It's the same reason as I'm Jewish and I eat shellfish, but I don't eat pork. So it's like my game, my rules, my life. My rule for cancel is like with Michael Jackson. I will listen to the old Michael Jackson stuff, but if his estate somehow released new Michael Jackson music, I absolutely would not download it, would not pay for it, nothing.
That's brave of you to only listen to the classic Michael Jackson stuff as opposed
that's to... Obviously, that's ridiculous because that's...
That's mighty brave of you to avoid the lower budget studios making Mel Gibson movies because they're the only ones that'll have them at this point. Wow.
Let me ask you this. Service. I watched The Usual Suspects again, and I just watched a movie called Moon with Sam Rockwell, who I love, and Kevin Spacey's voice is in it playing the robot who basically is his companion on the moon for 3 years. And I'm watching the movie for the first time, and I'm thinking, this is a really good movie, but people are not going to watch it because Kevin Spacey's name appears above the title or that his voice is in it. And that is incredibly unfair to Sam Rockwell, who had an amazing performance. So I'm also a little torn, not when it comes to music, but when it comes to movies, because what if there's good acting performances in a Mel Gibson vehicle? That would be something that would be disappointing.
Richard Donner passed away recently, and his career was intertwined with Mel Gibson because he did the Lethal Weapon movies. What's your favorite Richard Donner film?
I just did the top 5 on yesterday's Nothing Personal, the day he died at 91.
You want to repurpose? I'll take Nothing Personal stuff. By the way, if you're a fan of David Samson, don't just support David Samson by listening to Nothing Personal with David Samson, but Twitter audience out there. We have a big social media following. Let's boost some of those that follower count for David Samson. Follow him at David P. Samson on Twitter. He does a good job, and if you're like me, you're very busy. You don't necessarily have the time every day to listen to Nothing Personal. He does a great job of repurposing a lot of the video clips from that show onto his Twitter feed, and it's really thought-provoking. David, can I take that list from Nothing Personal and quickly run through it here with you?
You certainly can, because Lethal Weapon's on it. The Goonies are on it. I have to go back to my document from the day that we did that, which was I'm going to give you the exact day it was, because, I reviewed the Tomorrow War yesterday. And then it was the day before, on July 6th, Nothing Personal, I think was the day Richard Donner died. 91, by the way. So here was the top 5 Richard Donner movies. And they were pretty good. Number 5 was Superman, the original 1978 with Gene Hackman. Number 4 was The Goonies. If you haven't seen The Goonies, then I don't know what to tell you. Number 3, Maverick. Loved it. Not a lot of people agreed with me.
Wait a second. Maverick with Mel Gibson? That movie slaps. This is my second favorite card movie.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What's your first favorite card movie? Rounders?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rounders is the best card movie, but yes. It does 21 count as a card movie?
I think so. Like and 21 was cool. A good ensemble cast. Oh, wait a second. Is that a Kevin Spacey movie too?
Yeah. Yes.
Shit.
I walked you right into that. Are you now going to say you don't like 21?
I'm going to have to say I'm never going to watch 21 again. I got all that I got out of it. Oh, I like Molly's Game too. Molly's Game was good. Shit, do I have to revise my list? No, I'm sticking with Rounders, Maverick, Molly's Game.
You're sticking to that because of Kevin Spacey.
And I've omitted 21.
Unbelievable. Number 2, Lethal Weapon. It's still number 2, the original Lethal Weapon. But my focus during Nothing Personal was on the number 1 movie because not enough people watched it. Not enough people appreciated it. And it's a movie called Scrooged with Bill Murray. Jessica, have you seen Scrooged by chance? I
have not.
Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it.
Okay, so Bill Murray basically is the Ghost of Christmas Present, the Ghost of Christmas Past. It's a redo take off of these Christmas movies, and it was brilliant. And for whatever reason, people were reticent to embrace it because they wanted sort of the Caddyshack Bill Murray or the Meatballs Bill Murray or the Stripes Bill Murray, and it was a far more serious movie, much in the vein of one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies called Click, which people didn't appreciate, or Stranger Than Fiction, which people didn't appreciate for Will Ferrell. Scrooge is sort of like that, Jessica.
I have a take on Goonies. And this is intertwined with Stranger Things. By the way, the chemistry that popped off the screen between Jodie Foster and Mel Gibson and Maverick, it's hard to replicate. They really had a thing going there.
Those are two good actors because there was no chemistry whatsoever.
I don't like it when little kids in cinema find themselves in adult situations and succeed. The only time it's ever worked in film is when it's tongue-in-cheek with me. Like Home Alone, shit slaps. Like Home Alone, I'm willing to suspend disbelief. But if this were real life, the Wet Bandits would have murdered Kevin McAllister. They would have murdered him graphically. But it's a comedy, so you're willing to suspend some disbelief. But Goonies and Stranger Things, where little kids are saving the day and adults are being inept and they need these little kids to rescue them, like, get the hell out of here.
What about toy soldiers?
What about Harry Potter?
What about Harry Potter?
Harry Potter's magical, and I've never seen a Harry Potter movie.
What?
So I can't say that I'm upset with you because I had never seen one either until the pandemic, and then I watched every single one of them back to back, and I fell in love with it.
These movies are on ABC whatever channel it is.
Yeah,
now,
but it's like usually it's like
every weekend.
It's like the Prince of Azerbaijan or something like that. I'm like, I think this is the fourth one, so I'm not gonna just jump in
Thank
here.
You, Billy.
So here's how to do it when you've never seen a movie, though, Jessica, which is the issue I used to have before all these streaming services. I will not watch a movie for the first time on an airplane or on a regular channel where there's either commercials or it's been edited for comment or edited for content or it's been formatted to fit a screen. Like if there is that sort of warning before a movie comes on and I've never seen it, I won't watch it.
That's fair. And watching anything in a airplane, the audio quality is generally pretty crappy, and I feel like sound mixing is actually a pretty big deal in movies, so you might want to have that when you watch something for the first time.
I loved the Harry Potter movies. I must tell you, I expected to not like them. I also watched during COVID all of the Lord of the Rings movies, which I'd never seen. And I'm just so amazed by the filmmaking of all of it and so amazed watching these characters grow up and watching the stories. I've never read any of the books, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, none of them, not even the Spark Notes or Monarch Notes for any of them. And I was just amazed at how much I enjoyed them when that's a genre that generally I did not like before.
Well, the Lord of the Rings movies were groundbreaking. And last year during COVID, there was actually a cast reunion on Zoom with Josh Gad and Peter Jackson and I think Philippa Boylan is her name. She was one of the writers on the films. They kind of peeled back the curtain a little bit on some more like inside stories. And I rewatched it the other day and I was just like in tears when it ended because I love that cast so much. And also when I was growing up, like these movies came out I think 2001, 2002, 2003, or maybe like 99, 2000, 2001, I don't know, but they came out like quickly in succession, and I was probably like 5 or 6 years old when I watched them. And the extended edition DVDs came out, which by the way, if you watch Lord of the Rings, you have to watch the extended editions because they're amazing. And all of the DVD packs came with like behind the scenes making of the film because they were using all this new technology and Gollum and everything, the CGI.
I can hear the excitement in your voice, Jessica, right now.
And like I swear to God, like I think watching those videos, like the behind the scenes videos with Peter Jackson and all the actors and actresses, like made me want to study film, and that's why I ended up going to college and getting a film and television degree.
And look at you now.
Yeah, now I am
you talk about
podcast producer.
now you're on a podcast where you just talk about your passion for the films.
There you go.
So Josh Gad did a reunion with the Goonies as well as part of COVID. When he did Lord of the Rings, he did the Goonies. And looking back at that movie, I mean, Sean Astin, Sean Astin's a common thread through what we're talking about.
Yeah, he follows.
I was just going to say that. Can we talk about Rudy next? Because I met Sean Astin 2 years ago. Nicest guy in the world. He's a gem.
He's like my size.
Yeah, he really is Hobbit-sized. I've met one of the four.
I'm not Hobbit-sized. Hold on, stop.
I said he was Hobbit-sized, and you said he was your size, so he's Hobbit-sized.
No, you said Hobbit-sized after I said he's my size. You said, he really is Hobbit-sized. Yeah, play it back, Mike. That's exactly how that just went down.
I mean, it was confirmation, but yeah, I think you kind of roped yourself into that one, David, personally. Also, newsflash, David Sampson's shorter.
I am shorter than Sean Astin?
No, just shorter than average.
What's average?
I would say, what is average for a male? I'm going to say 5'9".
5'9".
Yeah, 5'9".
Yeah.
So you're shorter than 5'9".
I am shorter than 5'9". I mean, not in heels.
Is that insensitive to say not the heels part to say than average anymore?
No,
I think
I'm perfectly okay with that.
I think there might be a compliance video. Because
is HR for Metallark going to get in? Is the pirate ship going to take on water?
I don't want to insinuate that you're less than.
You don't have to be that careful. I think we have to be smarter about this.
I feel like I should be.
Why?
Well, it's just, I mean, we've already talked about Mel Gibson on this episode, so I'm already playing with fire.
You can't call me a midget.
I didn't do that. Whoa, come on now.
But I'm saying that's what you can't do.
Yeah, I know that. I don't even like
But you can say I'm shorter than the average male.
Okay, and back it up the way that I had to, which is a word salad of actually quantifiably proving that you're shorter than average. Jessica, this is also not going to surprise you. I saw the look on your face when I said I didn't like Harry Potter. Unlike the Harry Potter films, I've actually watched the Lord of the Rings films. Now, I guess when I was a kid, I was just more into MTV than I was into reading books, so I missed the book train on both of those literary masterpieces. When the film came out, I was just so bored by Lord of the Rings, and it was super ambitious filmmaking. Don't get me wrong, I actually really like Peter Jackson. Super excited about his Beatles project that I believe is coming out on Disney Plus. Like King Kong, but those films just didn't resonate with me. It's not for everybody. That being said, I think I'm excited about the Amazon series just because I saw a quote floating around on social media that an actor's been there for years and he has no idea when they're going to wrap season 1.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for this Amazon series. I've been poring over the maps late at night trying to figure out what part of Middle Earth they're going to be in. It's just going to be so good. And
what maps do you pour over, Jessica? What does that mean?
No, they released maps to give clues about like what age they're going to be in, because Middle Earth is like the third age is when the Lord of the Rings starts, and so this is going to be before that. This is going to be like the age of the Ainur, I believe, and this is like the fall of Numenor, I think is what the first season might be. So it's kind of like what sets up Aragorn's whole prehistory, and then when his character becomes like the King of Gondor in the Return of the King, like
you're messing with me now. You're making up some of these.
How come everything ends in or?
Tolkien was he made all this shit up. Like, it's hard. Not everything ends in or. The Shire doesn't end in or, but like Rohan doesn't end in or. Rohan, sorry. Anyways, I was just gonna say, Mike, the Harry Potter movies didn't do it for me. They were fine. I'm just surprised you've never seen them because they're literally on TV every single weekend.
Yeah. I'll do the butterbeer at Universal Studios. I find that delicious, and the ride is pretty fun. And I kind of get it. There's like Ralph Fiennes doesn't have a nose. It seems kind of cool, but it's just not for me. I don't think it was made for me. Let's move on to. By the way, do you have a review on the Patriot? Because this shit's awesome.
It's fine.
What? I mean, granted,
it's not a top 5 Mel Gibson movie.
Oh, do you have your top 5? Wait,
no. I'm just saying you don't want to do
a top 5 Mel Gibson movies.
Bird on a Wire may not be either, but I like that movie.
Whoa, wait a second. All right, Mel Gibson has this thing where he has unparalleled chemistry with his co-stars. Jodie Foster and Goldie Hawn, Bird on a Wire. It is just, I would put that in a film class to just display chemistry between co-stars. That, and oddly enough, Night and Day with Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise. I thought it was charming as all get out.
What Women Want with, was that Helen Hunt?
That was Helen Hunt.
I'm totally blanking.
Yeah, no, it was Helen Hunt.
Yeah, that. So listen, Mel Gibson, before he sort of went all Randy Quaid, he was the guy. He was a leading man. He was an action hero. He was who everyone wanted to be. He had all these kids in Australia living on this ranch, and then it just sort of all went south for him in every way. And I don't know whether it started with the divorce or ended with the divorce or started with him being anti-Semitic or he grew into being an anti-Semite. My guess is you don't grow into that. And he just couldn't get away from it. And maybe he became too big a star, whatever the case is. Mel Gibson is one of the top, God, without this sort of controversy, he's got to be one of the top 10 stars of the 20th century, doesn't he? I mean, is that really saying too much about Mel Gibson?
I mean, if you look at the catalog of films he's been in, it's hard to argue. Colonel William Tavington from The Patriot, though, one of the most evil, sadistic jerks in all of cinematic history. I mean, what they put Mel Gibson's character through, the ghost, the Patriot. I mean, how many sons have to die? How many?
You sound like the Bob Dylan song. How many roads must a man walk?
David, when Tavington orders the church to be set on fire with all the people of the town in it, after he already got a rat to rat out the militia's position, I mean, they kind of insinuate that Heath Ledger's wife is with child. It's just a brutal watch. How much does this guy have to go through? It's insane. It's probably an hour too long. They could have spared me one of the child's deaths, but on July 4th...
Hold on. You can't say a movie's one of the best ever and say it's an hour too long at the same time. If Dan were here, he'd be putting that on the poll, right? You can't be a great movie and be an hour too long.
I think The Lord of the Rings, probably. The Two Towers. It was an hour too long.
Okay, the Battle of Helm's Deep needed its time. It's a 45-minute epic battle, and they've spent months filming that on a real Helm's Deep battlefield. I don't know what you're talking about, Mike.
Yeah, but it was just all like grainy and dark, and you seen one elf, you seen them all. You see one dwarf, you seen them all. You see one
Uruk-hai versus 100 men of Rohan, and then
when the trees started walking
at the last minute.
When the trees started walking, I was like, this is Smoke Monster vibes and Lost. Like, I'm out.
God, Treebeard, what a man! Am I right? I love Treebeard.
Is that the father of the Bradley Cooper character in Guardians of the Galaxy?
The father? What? No. What? Wasn't?
Who was the voice of the tree in Guardians of the Galaxy?
That is Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Yeah. Wait, who's Bradley Cooper then? Is he the fox?
He's a raccoon.
The raccoon. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder if those are related to the Vin Diesel tree and the Lord of the Rings tree.
Are you asking if they're family?
Yes, because they could be, couldn't they?
Yeah, and I like what you did by invoking the Vin Diesel tree when he plays an actual tree in Guardians of the Galaxy. Vin Diesel's career outside of those Fast and Furious movies, a big disappointment. No?
I liked Boiler Room.
Oh, come on.
I did.
I mean, Boiler Room was... Look, I also got a kick out of Boiler Room, but this is just a Glengarry Glen Ross ripoff.
Yeah, but isn't the woman in Boiler Room the one who's married to the new head coach of some sports team?
Okay, now you're going to make me Google all of this.
I think that Nia Long may be in Boiler Room as Casey Affleck, as Giovanni Ribisi's girlfriend.
Nia Long, husband.
I can't guarantee it, but I have some strange recollection that's the case.
Wow, Udoka. Yeah, I didn't know that Nia Long was married to Udoka. That's a good bit of trivia there. Man,
and is she the one in Boiler Room?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm right.
Man,
I really like Boiler Room.
Biggest crush on Nia Long.
And it also struck me the father-son relationship between Giovanni Ribisi and John Mahoney, and how the father was a judge and he was just a bookie, really, trying to make good, trying not to disappoint his father. Who doesn't live their life trying not to disappoint their father? And you try to do it before he dies, and there's a lot of layers to Boiler Room that people did not focus on.
Giovanni Ribisi was a good actor. What happened there? Scientology?
No, he just was in an unbelievable series called Sneaky Pete.
Oh, yeah.
Which I absolutely loved, and then it got canceled for a reason I don't know. It was a brilliant series. And no, I think his career is still going. Is he a Scientologist?
Yeah, him. He's like one of those sneaky ones, like Michael Pena is too.
I was not aware. Is there a list of sneaky Scientologists?
Yeah,
where would I find that?
Here's another sneaky Scientology fact. Giovanni Ribisi has a sister, Marissa. She was married to Beck, who was also a sneaky Scientologist who has since disassociated himself from the Church of Scientology. Beck, Scientologist.
Isn't the purpose of being a sneaky Scientologist so that you can get out of it without telling people you were ever in it?
I think that is the purpose, yeah.
Then Beck did a terrible job.
Well, the first time he ever answered a question on Scientology, people kind of assumed he was a Scientologist because if you're married to a Ribisi, you have to be. And there was whispers out there within the biz that Beck was a Scientologist, but he came out and said, no, I just do my own little thing. I was never that. Don't make me that religion.
But why is that true? All the people married to Tom Cruise weren't Scientologists, were they? Katie Holmes and Mimi Rogers and Nicole Kidman. I don't think any of them were Scientologists.
Yeah. Michael Pena, full-fledged Scientologist, confirmed. It says full-fledged Scientologist, which I think is, I think his thetan levels are super low.
Are you able to sum up Scientology in 2 sentences?
L. Ron Hubbard made a religion.
Thin air.
Yeah, he just pulled it out of his ass. And
that costs a lot of money.
Yeah, and it became one of those things that you had to get into in Hollywood because the people that were in it were so influential. And then they made it impossible to escape via blackmail.
How is that different than what Joel Osteen does?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, actually, in my honest initial reaction to it, I think therein lies the answer when I said Jesus Christ. Moving on to Paul Dano, who is one of the best character actors of his generation. I mean, he doesn't necessarily steal films because the roles that he takes are super ambitious for an actor because he's opposite of some heavy hitters. One of my favorite films of all time, Little Miss Sunshine. He has probably the most emotional role in that film as the brother who, spoiler alert, discovers he's colorblind. It's not easy to hold your own in a scene with Daniel Day-Lewis, especially in There Will Be Blood, but Paul Dano found a way to do that, and in some moments even outshine Daniel Day-Lewis. Paul Dano, most people don't know him by name. Most people don't even know him by face. I'm not even sure that's going to be certain after the Batman movie comes out where he plays the Riddler where he's wearing a mask for most of the picture. But Paul Dano is a very underappreciated actor, David, and I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of him from the beginning. I was thinking about what my top 5 Paul Dano movies would be, and because he's had so many, I take some issue. He's not a character actor. He's a full-fledged leading man, best actor.
What is your definition?
But you're saying he's a character actor because he's not good looking, I feel like.
Yeah, my definition of a character actor is someone that is not conventional leading man appearance and therefore is pigeonholed into certain roles. Like Paul Giamatti is never going to head up an action film franchise because he looks the way that he looks. So he's a character actor. And he's usually playing characters that are meant to look like Paul Giamatti. So that's what I characterize Paul Dano as because I don't see him headlining the next Fast and Furious franchise.
Well, you never know. So I really couldn't disagree with you more. I think that there's a very few select actors who I would say it's just their looks. Like Tom Cruise is a good-looking guy. Mel Gibson in his time was a good-looking guy. Ryan Reynolds is a good-looking guy. But there are plenty of people who are leading male actors who are not considered incredibly good-looking. They're just really good. By the way, Daniel Day-Lewis is not considered this pin-up poster handsome guy, but he's the most talented actor you'll ever see. Dustin Hoffman, is he a character actor or a leading man actor?
I think he's canceled.
He's what?
He's canceled. Dustin Hoffman's canceled.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
Okay, but canceled or not, is he a leading man? Is Gene Hackman, was he a leading man actor?
Gene Hackman? You bet your ass. And also,
okay.
I just feel like his hands are super rough. I can look at somebody and tell. And Gene Hackman's one of those guys. Dan, you agree? Gene Hackman, hands rough.
Guillermo, put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you agree that Gene Hackman's hands look rough? Because I do. I think they're meaty hands.
Oh, yeah, meat hooks. And spots.
He's over 90 now, by the way.
He got into a bad bicycle accident in the Keys a couple of years ago, and I never followed up.
What would you follow up?
I just assumed he was okay, but I heard he got pretty banged up in that.
He stays at Jimmy Johnson's guest house.
Can you imagine how wild that would be? You're at the Big Chill, having a frozen margarita, and in comes Gene Hackman with his liver spot-coated meat hook hands.
Why haven't you followed up?
I'm going to do that right now. I've been doing a fair amount of Googling.
It seems boring. It's just 2 80-year-olds hanging out. Like, sorry, one's named Jimmy Johnson and one is Gene Hackman, but it doesn't seem like something I'd be interested in doing.
So disrespectful. I would love to observe it like a National Geographic cameraman.
I also think that Jimmy Johnson's life is more exciting than specifically yours, Billy, which, I don't think that you're out fishing and partying and drinking a lot of Heineken.
Yeah. Seems reckless if you ask me. We'll see how it ends.
What?
I'm just saying. I mean,
what are you just hashtag just saying what?
Maybe be a little more cautious, JJ.
David,
what is your concern?
You ruined sports in South Florida.
Who's this?
What?
Seriously, what just happened? We were having a perfectly fine show. Is that you, Le Batard, for real? Hello?
You ruined baseball in South Florida. Billy, the Dodgers, they're kicking the ass of the Dodgers 3 straight.
Dan, we already covered that 40 minutes ago, and the listeners who do 100% retention because they listen all the way through, they don't need a recap of what happened in the beginning of this show.
I wanted to talk to Billy about it, not the guy who ruined baseball in South Florida.
I'm doing a top 5 Paul Dano list, but Mike, it's totally up to you. Either you're conducting this pirate ship or not.
Can we have both things happening simultaneously?
That'll be good for the listener.
Number 5.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Too low. Billy, do you have anything on David ruining baseball?
You know.
Yeah. Number 4.
Love and Mercy, a very underrated, phenomenal movie about the life of Brian Wilson.
Number 4 for me was you trading Derek Lee. You mentioned that the 2004 team was pretty identical, but Derek Lee was a big part of that team. He had the power alley, the Publix power alley that he was always hitting the ball into, and he was really good for the Cubs. I believe he was an NL MVP candidate and finished very high up there. So the Derek Lee trade signaled that it's still business as usual for the Florida Marlins after a championship.
2 R's in that, Derek, huh?
Number 3, There Will Be Blood.
Number 3 for me was when you changed the colors from teal to black because I lost the connection, and then you went to all the colors with your next uniform scheme, which just really confused me.
Well, I hope you like the new ones, the new black uniforms, because you don't ever know the name of the player. Number 2, Ruby Sparks. Please see that movie immediately. It's with his partner in life is a woman named Zoe Kazan. And they did this movie together. It is brilliant. It is about a writer who, as he writes his book, this woman comes to life. So when he writes something, she laughs, then she laughs. It's a fascinating, that's a terrible description of a great, great movie, Ruby Sparks.
Number 2 for me wasn't necessarily trading Miguel Cabrera because it was being discussed for years. It was what you got back.
The number 1 Paul Dano movie is one of my top movies of all time. It's called The Girl Next Door.
And number 1 for me was a trade with the Blue Jays that signaled, once again, business as usual.
That's where they lost you. It was Josh.
done.
It was Josh Johnson.
Yeah,
it was Jose.
They actually won that trade, Dan. They made a good trade. But Burley went, Jose Reyes went, Josh Johnson went, and so did Mike. He went walking outside that door only to return for 3 innings with his daughter before he realized, not a fan of this park, not a fan of these colors, and I'll go to Petco instead.
So that's your plan. You're going to take your daughter to San Diego from Miami whenever you want to have a baseball experience?
I think so.
I think that makes total good sense.
What's
it really
wrong
does.
with Marlins Park?
It doesn't hit for me, man. It doesn't. I don't like the food options. There's really not a lot for me to do. I am a fan actually of that new bar that they put out there, the craft beer bar that they got out there.
You are reeling here. You're hitting Dave where it hurts
understand.
here on this one more than anything that I've said.
Look,
that one hurts.
The
Dave.
Budweiser.
Watch a baseball game. That's what you're supposed to do.
I love the Clevelander. The Clevelander thing there was really cool, and they got rid of it. They got rid of the thing that was my favorite part about the park. So
wouldn't you have liked to have been able to take your daughter to see the fish tanks?
The fish, the aquariums behind home plate?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
gone.
Derek Jeter is systematically erasing all the cool little touches that would have been fine for a child. Here's what I'll say about Marlins Park, Lone Depot Park today before I get to Jess, is it's not very family friendly. If I'm an adult, I can camp out at a bar and have a good time. When I go to a baseball game, here's what I want to do. Not watch baseball. I'm telling you right now, because the sport is boring to me. I like going to ballparks. I like going to stadiums. I like experiencing. If I'm traveling, I love experiencing a city because I think that's a real authentic take. There's not enough for me to do. I'm sort of forced to watch baseball at that park because I don't find enough stimuli there. Jess, you have something on this?
I just wanted to say that the home run statue was the greatest single piece of art of the 21st century. The fact that it is no longer in the park is, I think, an insult to art.
I think that art piece was an insult to art, actually.
It's right outside. You can still see it.
What are you talking about? It's outside?
Yeah,
I'm going to go.
You need
All right,
to.
I'll go.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I actually found that really the coolest part of Marlins Park was the fact that the infamous statue is outside and I can still take my selfies with it.
So can I give you a little list of things that you can do? And I don't know if they're gone. There's an area called Taste of Miami where you can go. It's right behind the left field seats, and you can go. There's concession areas that have great Miami food.
Here's what there is at this ballpark. Everything coming out of the same kitchen. You go to Noveciento, it comes out into Nathan's hot dog bun wrap. Like, it's insane. The food at that ballpark is so horrendous. It is god-awful to eat at that ballpark.
So do you want to know why that's the case? When we cut a deal in 2009, we took some money up front from a company called Levy Restaurants. Levy Restaurants at that time was a company that did only the premier suite level food, and they wanted to get into mainline concessions, and we wanted that too. And they were willing to pay up front for some of the cost of the infrastructure for concessions. It's hugely expensive. Part of that was getting better food to regular people in regular seats. And in the beginning of Marlins Park, the food was tremendous. We would do tastings every year. There were tons of different concession stands, from a kosher stand to Mexican food to Cuban food. It was really outstanding. But then when attendance did not hit the numbers that we told Levy would happen, they didn't get the profit that they expected, and therefore they started lowering the quality of the food, and not because they were wasting too much food, because there weren't enough fans coming. And so now what I believe has happened is the concessions at Marlins Park have totally changed. And in that regard, I'm sorry for your experience, but when it started, when it was Marlins Park, the food was actually known as some of the best food in the country.
I'll give you that win. I enjoyed my Sir Pizza and the Sir Pizza ranch sauce, but I didn't go there while the food was good, and I went there this year in Lone Depot Park. It's just some of the worst ballpark food, and I can talk myself into anything being good at a ballpark. You're talking to somebody that consumed those salt licks of chicken tenders and fries over at Pro Players Stadium because it was all they had. But Lone Depot Park got to step up there. All right. Oh, one last quick baseball nugget before I let you go. And baited the audience with cinematic discussion, and we're going to circle back to baseball because it's a hot topic in these parts. Starling Marte, what do you do there?
Well, it's a hot topic in every team, right? They want him, and he's an asset, and the Marlins are doing something that they should not have done, but I did every time. They're pretending. They're lying to you right now, pretending that they want to sign him to a long-term deal. So here's how you do it. It's a very quick 4-step plan. 1, you leak the fact that you have offered an impending free agent who's your own a long-term deal. 2, then you leak the terms of the offer, which to the real world sounds like, my God, you offered Starling Marte 3 years, $30 million. That's amazing. Because you have to offer enough that there's some credibility amongst people who are not in the business. 4, you have to guarantee that what you've offered is below market price and that he's not going to take it because it's your worst nightmare if he does. 5, he then rejects it. 6, you publicly say he rejected it to turn public favor against him so you can trade him at the deadline, which is exactly what you were trying to do anyway. That's what's happening with Starling Marte.
How do you feel, Mike, about what he did there, where he told us 4 things, he counted wrong, and gave us 5 things while saying it was 6?
How'd he play?
That is how you do it, though. The telltale sign is you don't see numbers like that leaked. When do you ever see Marlins have made offer? When do you ever see that?
I mean, typically because there isn't one.
Oh, no, they likely offered it to him. But it's like Mike Hill was offered a contract by Jeter before he left, but it was so below market that there was no way he was going to take it. Marte's not taking 30 over 3.
Speaking more in historical terms, given our plight here, supporting this baseball team.
A plight caused by you, David Sampson.
You are something else. Give the people what they want, Dan.
You're my greatest test. I am trying. You're the hardest test I have, trying to make everyone around here likable. Do you know how much asshole I have to dig into so that I can make you comparatively likable?
Baby.
So are you now saying that you do this as a bit so that I'm more likable so you're less likable? Because that is such bullshit. I can't believe it.
No. I don't.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, whatever, Dan.
It's so crazy that it's actually working.
Stop reading your Twitter comments and then treating me as though you have to react to them and like interrupting today's show by saying something because you read 20 comments about it on Twitter.
Because I went maximum asshole? Because I leaned into it again?
But what was your purpose? Is that good radio? Is it good podcasting? Is it good content?
I don't know. I'm pretty good at content, radio, and podcasts. I think I've had a decent amount of success in those realms.
Historically speaking.
I think that DraftKings is showing you that that's true, but just be careful because the first 50 is far easier than the second 50.
Okay.
All right, good parade. Thank you, David Sampson, host of Nothing Personal with David Sampson. Follow him on Twitter at David P. Sampson. Always enjoy our time with you. Go back and rewatch the Patriot because I think it matches the loophole protocol that you put out there for enjoying Mel Gibson films because Colonel William Covington is an absolute monster in this film. It needs to be talked about. That and Pan's Labyrinth, the two greatest villains in cinematic history.
No Country for Old Men.
Oh, good one. All right, next week,
see ya.
Your top 5 list of villains.
It is precious little solace when your great season ends in the first round to the team that eventually becomes champion. But, Roy, how insane were you made last night by Kucherov, shirtless, drinking beer, a champion again, that cheating Kucherov from those cheating Tampa Bay Lightning, just throwing it in everybody's face that they're better than everybody. And as one last smear on Canada, which must be made insane by Tampa Bay winning 2 of these things, telling Montreal, you celebrated your championship last round, just lecturing Montreal about how terrible Montreal is as hockey fans. Kucherov took his victory lap last night. He might as well have done the entire press conference just totally nude.
Well, all Canada applauded his comment about Montreal, but I sat down there and I watched that Stanley Cup being lapped around the entire Emily Maria Arena ice, and I stared at it in pain, but I know next year is going to be a lot better. I'm telling you right now, the Panthers are going to go a lot further in the first round.
Panthers are good.
Yes, they're very good. They're very good. And Aaron Ekblad, once he's healthy, I'm telling you, they're going to show the entire NHL world that they're a really good team.
I know we know this, and bomb-throwing Amin Elhassan is with us again. We've got a lot to get to with him because there are more ESPN remnants to get to. But I just want it stated again, even though it's the most obvious of things. That sport is crazy. It's simply, I know we do this all the time with football, but football players aren't moving at that rate of speed. And if you have seen the size that hockey players have gotten to, that sport is crazy.
In game 1, Alex Killorn blocked a shot from Shea Weber and broke his leg, broke his fibula. And he wanted to play last night. He skated.
Of course.
He skated last night to play, tried to play. He didn't get in, but he expected to get in if they had gone to game 6. That's crazy. I know we've done the whole routine of they're skating around on swords, and it's just an insanity. But the speed those people move and the physical play in that sport and how it gets ratcheted up in the playoffs, you are watching carnage. You're watching people do something that's just fundamentally insane.
And as a one-off, I really enjoyed the pandemic rules. Unfortunately for my team, they had to play the best team in the sport in the first round because they couldn't go outside of their own division until they reached the conference semifinals or the playoff semifinals, as they call them this year. Yeah, it was really difficult to lose at the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but you just have to marvel at how badass they are. Kucherov goes an entire regular season without playing, drops in at the very start of the playoffs, is immediately the best player throughout the playoffs. That or Vasilevsky, who's just a nightmare to go up against, especially in elimination games. But if you want a homer slant to this, the Panthers are as well positioned as any team to take down the defending champions. They hit them hard. They're getting their best defender in Ekblad. They're getting this hotshot prospect in Lundell back, and the Florida and a full season of Nider.
Only the Islanders played them as tough, correct?
Yeah. Yes, they won 6 games. Yeah.
I just want to know how pissed Roy would have been if Kucherov won the Conn Smythe last night.
I wouldn't have been as pissed, really. I probably would have given it to Braden Point before Kucherov, but I mean, Vasilevsky, he was 5 shutouts in the entire playoffs. He deserved that trophy.
Kucherov was sitting there giving away the MVP. He was telling everybody in his torso, whatever he thought went last night, because it was his victory lap. Did his torso not look exactly the way you imagined it did? Carpet of hair, just a lot of hair from the beard never ended, really. The beard just went to his loins.
It's so badass. And for that fan base, 2 Stanley Cups in 282 days. They talked the junk. They got away with skirting the rules, and they dominated the entire postseason. So despite the fact that they're in Pittsburgh South and it's a terrible cesspool of a town, they have a really damn good hockey team.
Unnecessary, says Jess. The bomb thrower Amin Elhassan is here chortling in the background. I want to talk to him about some of the remnant from ESPN. Very quietly, by the way, sideswiped. My Latino brothers, Izzy and Sedano, lost all their sideline gigs. My Latino friends around here, just in the March for Equality, the parking lot fight in Anchorman between the news teams ends up with Sedano and Izzy stabbed with a trident. They have been pushed off in the need to get other sideline reporters out there.
Yeah, Sedano got pushed all the way to Chael Sonnen.
Yeah, you saw that? I was surprised. Like, wait.
What were you surprised by? Jorge Sedano has to rise up the ranks. That's a good pairing, him and Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen lost Ariel Helwani. Ariel Helwani pretty quietly left the network. That one, if you've been paying attention, and it's worth paying attention to as UFC becomes more and more of a fixture, a streaming service for Disney, for ESPN, gets more and more power there while paying its fighters a reported 18%, which is a lot less than most athletes get in these kinds of arrangements. And as an added bonus, if you were listening to the local hour, you heard David Sampson tell you about Marte and how it is that you go about letting someone leave who you want to leave. You make an offer, you make the offer public, but you make the offer so insulting that the person has to leave. And Ariel Helwani, who beefed with Dana White in a way that was pretty grotesque, ends up getting a different job somewhere else because the company's been handed over to Dana White.
Right. So your assertion is that Ariel gets lowballed not because the company doesn't value what he does or understand or recognize him as the premier, media voice in that sport, but under pressure from Dana White, they wanted to set up the circumstances so that Ariel would leave under his own accord, because obviously if you fire him, then that looks really bad. Is that your hypothesis?
That's not a hypothesis.
We're throwing bombs.
That's not a hypothesis. Ariel Helwani is journalism in that sport, yes. And Dana White doesn't want journalism in that sport, doesn't understand for it, doesn't care for it, has played active defense against journalism. Ariel Helwani's path has been amazing to climb, the degree of difficulty to climb with a professionalism into applying journalistic standards to a sport that does not want them, and increasingly, as you've seen, a network that doesn't want it the same way that it used to want it, unless you think that what ESPN wanted to do in that circumstance journalistically when they encountered the Rachel Nichols thing is, let's have the first voice we go to after Rachel's apology on behalf of the network be Kendrick Perkins. I'll just let that sit there for a second.
Carry the hell on.
The guy who's got one move to tell people to carry the hell on was the first voice. It is a good move. It is a good move.
And he still looks like Ivan Ooze from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie.
One of my favorite moments in the history of this show is having Scott Brooks on and asking him, why are you still starting Kendrick Perkins? And his response being, well, we've got a 66% winning percentage with him. And I'm like, imagine how high it would be without him.
This is the same conversation you and David Sampson had. Maybe it was off air. I don't know if I'm divulging, but he asked you being kind of churlish with him. Do you think that makes for good radio, good podcasts, good ratings? And you basically pointed at the scoreboard and says, Yeah, I kind of think it does.
I mean, my judgment about how to make these things is you could question it if you want, but it's been successful.
But if you're the Scott Brooks, then you're Scott Brooks. You're saying, well, look how successful we are. And then David Sampson says to you, well, imagine how successful you'd be if you didn't do that.
How much more successful can we be?
You want to hop in the Throwback Thursday machine and listen to you telling Scott Brooks to not play Kendrick Perkins?
We got that sound?
Yeah, we got that sound from 2013. I haven't listened to it, so we'll suffer through this together.
Did I remember it correctly? Let's find out together. We got this sound from ESPN.
90 seconds of trying to figure out if Dan remembered it correctly.
What's the coaching mistake Scott Brooks made in the finals last year that haunts him the most?
I think I criticized myself a lot on some play calls that I could have maybe done differently, or a timeout 1 or 2 possessions earlier. It's one of those things. Do you want red wine or white wine? If the guy that doesn't really know what he wants, he always picks the opposite one you're willing to offer him. So,
I want the wine that doesn't have Kendrick Perkins in the game so many minutes.
Well, that seems to be the common denominator of most people. But when you're around Kendrick, you know that he's all about winning, and his winning percentage speaks for itself. He doesn't score a lot of points, nor do we want him to. And quite frankly, he's not capable of scoring a lot of points. But he scores his points by getting us screens. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook open for our pick and rolls or our pin down game. That you can't put a number on that, but I would say he helps Kevin score 20 points of it, or 20% of his points. He's a low post defender. He's a defensive anchor, and he wins games. His winning percentage is frightening the last 5 or 6 years.
For most series, he's fine. Against Miami, that style of play, it's less fine.
Okay, well, you know what, guys? I think I'm going to go with Scott Brooks over you two.
Okay,
I don't know. Just call me crazy. I'll go with Scott's knowledge of his team over Dan Le Batard and Stugotz.
But the way he did it didn't work.
Although I don't know. Hey, you got some good points. You do got some good points, but I have to agree with Stan on that one.
Oh, am I remembering it wrong, though? Did I not say to him, I feel like that sound, ESPN took that sound and kept it for itself? Did we lose that sound?
I'm sorry, you want more awkward sound from that? That didn't do it for you?
I thought I had the way I remembered is that I had specifically said to him, how much better do you think the winning percentage would have been? That was really a grilling of Scott Brooks. And in retrospect, both of those coaches are unemployed now. I don't know how this is going to work in the coming days. I know that Whitty and Tony and Jason Gallagher and the Cotes and Stugotz are in Tahoe, and allegedly they are going to get content for the show while they're in Tahoe. Right now, Whitty has appeared bathed in light angelically near a golf course. It looks like he's joining us from heaven, and the party got started last night with, I saw a casino, I saw liquor, I saw no Stugotz anywhere to be found, and did you guys ever connect with him, Whitty? Is he joining us today? Is he out there still just stuck in Travis Kelce's ass crack?
So he will arrive. The first shuttle over is at 6:30 Pacific time, so he'll be here momentarily with his golf clubs and getting ready to play. We did connect with Stugotz last night, and we were in some room last night. We went to the welcoming event at the Harrah's here in Lake Tahoe for all of the players, and it was a scene. Just in terms of random combinations of people, like Brett Saberhagen is talking to CeCe Sabathia, and Jimmy Rollins is hanging out with Justin Tuck. And Stugotz was working this room. He insists, by the way, that he got a hug from Aaron Rodgers. Like, he came over and was like, Aaron Rodgers hugged me. Aaron Rodgers hugged me. He was like, he pulled me in, and it was meaningful, and it was a hug, and he's going to come on the show tomorrow. I'm like, okay, Stugotz. But he was working that room like nobody's business.
Yeah, we got a text from Stugotz last night at 9:53 p.m. Eastern time that said, I just got a from Aaron Rodgers and Marcus Allen, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. And then obviously that sat there for a while because it didn't make any sense. And then he replied and said, all caps, hug, asterisk. I just got a hug from Aaron Rodgers and Marcus Allen.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Did Stugotz getting meaningful hug from Aaron Rodgers last night? I love the description. I love the adjective, though. I love the adjective meaningful. What does it mean? Explain to me what the hug from Aaron Rodgers meant.
So he went over. So he's like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go over and say, by the way, in this room, I did not have this. I honestly thought so. This is like a welcoming meeting. They're talking about sponsors and the rules. So I didn't have like the big guns showing up for this. I had like Brett Baer from Fox News showing up for this, which he duly did. But also." Arriving in the back of the room was Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake cracking wise throughout the presentation, sung YMCA for no reason. It was delightful. But him and Aaron Rodgers are in the back of the room, and Stugotz sees him and he goes, "I'm going to go talk to him. So he goes over. I only got a glimpse because I was trying to be like very subtle and calm. So I only was like kind of peeking over the back of my shoulder. And at the end of it, he comes over and goes, "Hey guys, he pulled me in. He recognized me and he pulled me in. Like it was like and that was, I guess, the meaning in it. It wasn't just like I think I know you. It was a pull, and it was there was layers to the hug, I guess.
In like the ancient Vikings, they believed that when they died, they go to Valhalla, and it's this big hall, and they just eat and drink and merriment for the rest of eternity. I believe that this event is Stugotz's Valhalla. He just died and he went to heaven where he's in a big room with Brett Saberhagen and Marcus Allen and Aaron Rodgers and Justin Timberlake, and he just schmoozes nonstop.
Weren't the face painters in the Mad Max, the latest Mad Max thing, going to Valhalla? Wasn't that Valhalla? What was being specifically cited there? Why were you booing Jessica? Why were you booing Justin Timberlake cracking wise?
I would have booed him if he sang the YMCA. If I were there winning him, I would have been the one person in the room standing up booing Justin Timberlake.
Well, it was to do with one of the presenters who, I guess there was some link to him doing the YMCA, and he was performing. Like there were musical notes being hit as he was singing the YMCA. I was like, I cannot believe I'm in this room.
I would have booed him.
I don't doubt it, given the Britney Spears discussion that we had last week. Also, Valhalla has a Norse mythology origin, but I understand why you attribute it to Mad Max, because they did say that, but that wasn't the first time we heard the term.
I do doubt it. I'm just going to say, I feel like you have a level of decorum where you wouldn't, in a public setting, just start yelling boo at someone.
You know what, Billy?
Not that you don't feel that way. Not that you don't feel that way. I feel like
never seen me at a college football game, Billy.
Scream across the room, boo!
Yes, I'm with Billy on this.
Brett Baer there.
Release the chickens.
Yes, let's release them. Let's release them because we were scared to release them because of the Free Britney thing, and I'm tired of being scared around here. I want a free environment where the chickens are free to rule when someone is dabbling in fraud.
Yo, chicken time!
Chickens are scared.
It was a banquet hall.
You would have booed for Sean McDermott.
And handsome.
Future sex love sounds.
You're really gonna boo in front of Mike Vrabel?
I would have booed Mike Vrabel too, Whitty.
Get out of here! I still did the interlude to Love Zone.
You would have put everyone in such an awkward position, booing in the banquet hall room as Justin Timberlake is singing YMCA. What do? Do we drag her out? She's just booing. Oh, wait, it's the Free Britney thing. Maybe she's right. We can't. Let's put her on stage to see if she wants to sing YMCA. What do we do?
Jessica, let me tell you a story about me doing this in a large environment like that. My first ESPYs that I went to, I get super hammered, right?
Stunner.
Yeah, I don't believe this story already.
I'm seated.
Chicken time!
Getting drunk at a public function? No! On a show?
I simply cannot believe it!
No, if anything, maybe a couple Heine 00s.
You can talk to someone. I'm always here for you, Amin.
Hey.
Call when I did admit it.
First step is admitting you have a problem.
I'm in the 6th row. And the way the ESPYs work, when they open that first segment, everybody gets forced into the seating. They shut down all the bars. That's it. Because they want the house to look full for TV. So John Cena is hosting. And I'm a little miffed because I wanted to keep drinking. So I'm sitting there and saying, at the first commercial break, that's when you can go. I'm sitting there, and John Cena's doing the intro monologue, and it's got all, like, the corniest, straightforward sports jokes. Like, oh, he's never had it worse, and he lives in Cleveland. Ha, 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 ha. And everyone's laughing hard, and I get annoyed. So what I start doing is waiting until the laughter dies down, and then laughing very obnoxiously loud. I get it, because Cleveland sucks as a city. The whole time. And everyone in my row is looking at me and goes, what's wrong with this guy? So we go to commercial. The guy says, and clear. And so in my mind, everyone has the same idea I have. Better rush back to the lobby. Now the bars are open. I don't want to wait in line. So I get up and I take like 3 swift steps up the aisle. And then some little birdie on my shoulder says, Amin, turn around. And I turn around and the entire auditorium is still sitting down and they're all staring at me. Like, where's he running to? And so, yeah. Let me tell you right now, you ain't booing nobody in that kind of forum.
Employee heckler, they're looking at you. Yeah. They're looking at you and saying, wait a minute, he works for us. Is it clear that he's being sarcastic about the ESPYs?
Biggest night for the company. It's a very strange move by him.
Yeah. Someone tell Andrew Buchholz to add this to his article. Like, and then there was that one time at the ESPYs where he was drunk. You going to believe him?
You just mentioned Andrew Buchholz by name. Nobody knows who you're talking about. No one.
Yeah, that was off-air banter, I mean.
Yeah. Well, now it's on-air banter.
Well, who is Andrew Buchholz? Now that you're officially a bomb thrower, what is your complaint? Who does he work for? He's a media writer. These media writers. Hey, Marchand, get some sources outside of ESPN, dude. Like, it's embarrassing.
Get some sources outside of that one guy.
Yeah. Hey, Amin. I didn't want to slap a gender on it. No, that's
that one person.
Yeah. This is going to be a recurring theme here where you're just throwing bombs. So I guess I'll make it into a benchmark. Let me see if I have music for it. Okay.
Bomb throwing, Amin?
Yeah, I got music that's cleared. Go for it.
We have to get something that's after 1930. We have to get some music cleared after 1930.
I feel like I need to have my pencil-thin mustache back for this.
The Lou Bega, Simpler Times.
Remember that.
Am I ruining the joke by asking him to explain the joke? Because I just don't feel like anybody knows who he's talking about or why he's got gripe with somebody.
We've seen the numbers. The local hour of Jamel Hill it's caught fire. It's gone viral. Amin went viral. They were writing about his Woj bombs that he threw on the last show. So provide some context for the listeners that don't know Amin and get quickly into the Andrew Buchholz aspect.
Just so that people understand what it is that happened over the course of that hour, people really appreciated that Amin and Jamel had a nuanced conversation. And even if everything requires fighting these days, and you cannot have multiple stances without being someone who's caping up in an absolute way for somebody. Amin and Jamel handled that with layers, and people appreciated being able to hear commentary that was honest and layered and not simply absolute.
Real talk, Dan, I felt the conversations went so well that I've refused other invitations to go on podcasts to clarify or go deeper or even to talk about the topic, because I felt like I will never be able to have a conversation that best captured my feelings and was nuanced and had different viewpoints and all that stuff as we did with Jamel on Tuesday. Like, I want that to be the conversation of record, and I'm not talking about the topic anymore to anybody else.
One of the things that I think, and I don't know how this ends up working, but I think one of the places where it didn't help you, one of the fair criticisms is in rising up to defend Rachel Nichols, because you have a lot of information, including that it's in her contract that she was promised something, and a lot of us would react that way if something was in our contract, is that in doing that, you didn't actually help her. You didn't hurt her. Mm-hmm. But there is no help to be had here. There is nothing that can be said by anybody. Adam Silver comes out and says yesterday, careers shouldn't be erased by a single comment. And even with all his power, he's not helping her any, because it's just the white guy defending the white woman. And this thing has gotten so on the most superficial top level, all you have is people taking sides. Did you see what Jalen Rose's daughter did on TikTok? Like, you have people just taking sides simply because I take this one side and there are no other layers to this.
Because of the optics. Right? Like, I caught a fair amount of heat because the optics of black man rescues white woman, as if I were walking down the street and said, she's in trouble, and I just jumped in, not completely eliminating the fact that I have a relationship with this person. I know this person. I feel the content of their character. This music is very distracting as we're trying to have
I have my regrets.
Conversation.
It's the only music we have for the moment. We're trying to figure out.
No,
if we
I have
could
other
get...
tracks. If you'd
no,
if you'd
thank
like.
you. I don't want to see anything else from your 1930s file. I just want to.
Big fine. It's the Roaring 20s, Dan.
Yeah, they were too depressed in the 30s. There it is.
This is better.
Oh, I've been looking for this one.
You're right. This is better.
Hotsy Roxy.
So explain, Amin, the inside bomb throwing that you're doing now.
Oh, well, as you guys know, the segment went viral, as Mike said, and a lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of people who cover media for a living went into it, and one of them was this gentleman, Andrew Buchholz, and he wrote something of a takedown piece of me, claiming that, how can we trust him? He didn't give any proof, and then decided to go into the history of things that I've done as proof that
didn't give any proof on accusing Adrian Wojnarowski of stepping on careers to protect his turf.
Yes.
I should have asked you some follow-ups there. It's fair criticism of me to wonder why I didn't ask you some follow-ups.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like to me, so he wanted me to name names. My thing is, the names aren't relevant. What's relevant is that it's happening. Me putting people I know in a bad situation they didn't even ask to be here, that would be irresponsible, I feel, right? It's not about who said it or who did it or whatever. It's about it's happening. And again, this isn't something I don't believe I uncovered the JFK assassination thing. This is something that everybody in our industry knows. And if you cover sports media for a living and this is coming as a shock to you, dare I say it, you're not covering sports media very well.
I have been appalled at how flimsy the sports media coverage is in general. If you're going to carve out an area where you're the person who discussed this honestly, and you're just seeing for the first time in the LA Times, the first column from an LA Times writer where she's writing, hey, ESPN has a legitimate unrest with its black employees, and this is just arriving now. Right. This is all being reported now when a lot of us have known this for a year. The sports media types in this industry do a pretty flimsy job of covering the real stuff. In fact, the guy who wrote that New York Times article, Kevin Draper, tried to write something earlier in the pandemic, and I actually talked to him afterward, and I'm like, how did that get published in the New York Times? Like, how it was so flimsy, what it is that you wrote, that I don't understand how it got published.
It's just, to me, the fact that so many people were surprised by the conversations that we were having on Tuesday, that's the part that shocked me. I would have thought they all knew, but because as a journalist, you can't write that. You can't put that in print without hard evidence and facts, right? No, they seem legitimately shocked. Like, what? This is happening where? Why haven't I heard of it? Like, have you talked to anybody? That was the feeling I got reading some of these things. Like, oh, you've never spoken to anyone other than whatever source gives you whatever they want written. And that's a shame because, again, this isn't like someone who, it's not like, hey, yeah, I'm in NFL coverage and I hear all this stuff, NBA, what's going on. It's not like a fan. This is someone whose entire lane in life is sports media.
I get so bothered by sports media journalists because I find it very frustrating because I've always self-imposed that I don't talk to them. Us on this show, we never talk to anybody. The only person that breaks stories around us is Greg Cote. And I don't talk to Greg Cote about that shit either. And part of it is because they're very punitive measures if you're working for a big company, any big company, and you decide to leak something out to the media. So I personally found it very frustrating when there were articles sourced out by people within that company, and then it was the very same people that were telling me not to talk to the media. It was always one-sided. I could never get my story out there, and the only platform that I had was, thankfully, the biggest sports podcast in America.
Attaboy. Mike, it happened to me in Phoenix where we're getting leaks. And they call us all in the rooms. All right, who's leaking? And I'm like, do we really want to play this game? where the owner is best friends with the local radio shock jock and is giving him everything. I'm like, we know who's leaking. Why are we doing this roundup? We know who's doing the leaks.
People should pay attention to the fact that Meadowlark Media's Adnan Virk was fired over this stuff, and this stuff keeps ending up in the New York Post. And there don't seem to be consequences from the fact that Andrew Marchand publishes real one-sided shit, and there don't seem to be any consequences on that.
I think I don't even want to classify him as a media journalist, but Bobby Burek also has a very obvious slant to things.
At least his is, though, hateful and just political. His is he's just going to find the furthest right that he can go and just weaponize that.
Right.
And at least it's more transparent than, man, if you're going to wear the hood, I'd prefer to see it. I'd prefer to see it if you're going to wear the hood.
Well, Outkick, you obviously know where they're coming from, but Ryan Glassbeagle was there, and he was a little bit more middle of the road, and he's no longer there. But Bobby Burek has sources still, and I find that very frustrating. Like, why are you giving these people the benefit of the doubt?
The other thing that I was very delighted in was that Clay Travis also came out and said, "Oh, woke so-and-so." They say, "Oh, now Woj is racist or whatever." And I said, imagine that. I've got the far right and the far left mad at me at the same time. It's amazing. Everybody hates me.
How are you guys doing this? So that is Chris Cote behind you. Greg Cote, has he risen from the dead? He looked in bad shape. He's wearing those boat shoes. He obviously annoyed his son on the flight over there. What can you guys give us as a report from Tahoe on what we're going to get today, what we're going to get as you guys sit there? Is it going to just be you guys, or are other people going to come through?
We are hoping to have other people come through. To answer your question about Greg, the first thing he did when he got to the course this morning was bother Larry Fitzgerald's caddy for a Band-Aid. Because he has cut himself a couple of times. But Greg is here. He's awake. He's on time. And we're super excited. We tee off at around 8:35 Pacific time. So we're very excited for it.
What can you tell us about your meaningful hug last night?
Aaron Rodgers really pulled me in. I mean, so in a room of famous people, Aaron Rodgers was obviously the most famous, him and Justin Timberlake. And so they just gravitated towards each other. And then I went straight in for Aaron Rodgers. Dan, Tony saw it. He was the witness. He gave me a hug and then realized, oh, it's Stugotz, and gave me a little extra hug and really pulled me in. And I stood right next to him. And then Marcus Allen hugged me like I was a son he hadn't seen for 25 years. It was odd.
We started an hour and 45 minutes ago. You're not right on time.
How drunk was he, Whittingham? How haggard did he look? Was there anything in the way of embarrassing scenarios with Cote? You know, Cote got into those free Tahoe beers.
Hello. I can't hear anybody.
Very good.
I'm suffering from imposter syndrome. I'm dressed like a golfer. I'm not a golfer. As my first tee shot limps off the tee, people will, instead of yelling, "Get in the hole," they'll yell, "Imposter!"
Greg had a great idea, Dan, where on the first hole, he wants to go out with a roll of $20 bills because he's so nervous. Me and Chris are so nervous, okay? Like, this is a real tournament. There's galleries here. I'm going to choke, okay? But Greg wants to go out on the first hole and hand everyone $20 simply to not watch his first tee shots. And we are begging him to do it. It would be great video for us.
Is it just...
I think Larry Fitzgerald's on the green right there. Hold on, Dan. I'll be back.
That's Afonso Ribeiro.
How do you think that Larry Fitzgerald
and the son. The son.
Oh, the son.
To be
Okay,
fair,
yeah.
to be fair,
All right, whatever.
Afonso Ribeiro has a great ass.
And he has an open invite on our show.
Anytime.
Yeah, where is he?
He was hamming it up on the Today Show this morning. He was like doing like a full dance. He was fired up and ready to go at like 6:15 this morning. Like, fair play, Alfonso Ribeiro.
Wait, did you guys just say that he has an open invitation? You want me to go get Alfonso right now?
Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo. Fair play on Alfonso Ribeiro. And I don't want to let this slide, as Amin, for some reason, says, to be fair. I believe in this instance, we do not need to be fair. One of them is a Hall of Fame wide receiver with physical skill set that would look like a wide receiver in the NFL, at the top of the sport, at the top of athletic evolution. The other is Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I haven't seen a cloud in 6 days here on the lake. I'm telling you, the sun is it's glaring, right, Chris? It's hard to see, right? You can see how I made that mistake. I can't even explain it.
I can't. I noted yesterday Larry Fitzgerald has better DNA than us. We were stood outside. There was an event outside with a bunch of food trucks, and he's standing getting some barbecue, and I'm like, Larry Fitzgerald just has better DNA than the rest of us.
He's physically perfect.
Oh. He is. It's amazing.
But if all you saw were their asses.
No! Larry Fitzgerald's would be about 8 inches higher than Alfonso Ribeiro's.
It's a terrible mistake.
Larry Fitzgerald's ass would be where Alfonso Ribeiro's ears are.
To be fair, with Stugotz's height, everything looks like it's 8 inches above the sky, right? I mean, look, how is he supposed to tell the difference?
Thank you, Amin.
I got you, buddy.
So who are you partnered with? Is there any way to follow the action online and chart your progress? What are the details around this big pro?
We're partnered. It's me, Chris Cote, Greg Cote, Marty Fish, and the singer from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
The Zaddy?
Philip Bailey?
That's the
Philip
Isley.
Bailey.
Whoa, man, that's the Isley brothers, Dan.
Wait a minute. Earth, Wind, and Fire don't have a Zaddy?
Okay, Dan.
No.
All right, Dan just made the Alfonso Ribeiro mistake.
Yeah.
Just pay the fine.
Okay, fair enough.
To be fair.
Are you guys going to YouTube this? Are we going to be able to get this on anywhere? Where are we going to be able to get this live?
Okay, so live, I think what I'll probably end up doing is I might live tweet the round. There was, I believe, an idea. So there's a Twitter account called the Tiger Tracker, and we were thinking about doing the Cody Tracker for the course of the day, so that we can keep track of the progress of everyone here at Lake Tahoe. We do have a full camera crew. As a matter of fact, Chris Cote is being wired for sound right now, so this will be released some point. But in terms of live progress, I think it'll have to be myself. I'll kind of be recording on audio here, so I can kind of produce an audio report for you, perhaps, and then the video will be released in a few days' time.
So there will be a podcast episode specific to your adventures in Tahoe.
That's the plan.
Yes.
Are you guys afraid, you, Stugotz, Chris Cote, or more specifically Greg Cote, that you're going to swing and miss?
I am terrified. I played the course on Monday. I played 9 holes, and then I played 11 total holes, and I played very, very well. But I was nervous being out here because it's set up like a PGA tournament. I was nervous just being out here with a scoreboard, like a leaderboard was in front of me, and I was nervous about that. So Chris and I are very, very nervous. Greg seems strangely confident, which is odd. Greg feels like he's feeling good. He's stretched out. He's got his Band-Aid, and Greg thinks he has a good shot with a 22 handicap, by the way. Greg feels like he has a very good shot pulling off an upset today.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Pulling off an upset and being better than we expect when we expect him to embarrass themselves?
I could see Greg. I could see Greg upsetting people. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. There should be a prop bet on DraftKings as to whether or not Greg's going to hit a page, because I have played with Greg before, and there's a very, very good possibility of that happening.
Is he playing in golf shoes or is he playing in his boat shoes?
No, they're golf shoes, Dan. All right, come on. What do you take me for?
They're new golf shoes, though. Those aren't the same golf shoes you went to my course with.
Well, they're a little scuffed up. I intentionally scuffed them up to make them look like I wasn't debuting them.
How many beers did you have last night?
A modest amount, I think. 4 or 5. I don't know.
Modest.
Like nothing.
Wow. How many filet mignon tacos did you have?
Oh, those are great. Oh, my God. Oh, man. I have a couple in my pocket right now.
Free food trucks. The food trucks for free.
What?
Greg,
Oh, yeah.
Food trucks.
Are you worried, Greg, that you are going to swing and miss?
No. I am worried I'm going to, top the ball or slice it into Mr. McGillicuddy's farm over there. But swinging and missing, no, I'm not actually terrified about that. Famous last words.
Stugotz, what are the best case scenarios here, and what are the worst case scenarios?
Greg missing, Greg whiffing, one of us whiffing, someone pulling a back out, someone getting injured. I mean,
I've already been injured. I haven't even hit yet.
I know. Those are best case scenarios. We're playing with Marty Fish, who won the championship last year, so I'm certain he's going to be embarrassed being shackled to us all afternoon.
I feel like the worst case scenario is Greg hits a ball so far off the tee that it goes into another hole and hits Aaron Rodgers in the elbow or something like that.
Oh, no.
Oh, may it be the right elbow. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
The best case scenario was Stugotz got a free golf trip out of this. The worst case scenario is that it doesn't get expensed properly.
That's a good point.
I don't think I'm expensing this one, Billy. I don't know if we're allowed to.
Chickens!
Again with the chickens. The chickens is making
Chicken time.
He's definitely not paying for this.
With money, I don't trust you. You look like a CIA informant.
Get ready, Bimble.
Not even going to argue.
What are the chances someone yells breakfast ball?
Oh, God, I'd love it.
Did we get one of those?
I want a breakfast ball and one mulligan per 9.
Yeah.
That's my house rule.
There's nothing like a good breakfast.
Yeah, and a couple of toe wedges along the way. If my ball's behind a tree, I'm going to say, hey, look at that. And while everybody's looking, I'm going to give it a little toe wedge.
Are the people listening to this right now going to have guests today provided by you guys, or that is not likely today? We're doing a show tomorrow. When or where will we have possible guests?
So I can walk out to the driving range right now. I can walk to the putting green right now. I can ask some guys to come on. They could probably hear me from where they are. But here's what the cool thing is, Dan. They are allowing me and Greg and Chris to just be us on the course, meaning Whittingham has brought some equipment out here, some microphones, wireless mics, where I could just go on the course because we're playing right in front of Kelsey and Mahomes. And so I could just walk back to those guys and just start talking to them, interviewing them, or patching them through to you. So, like, the possibilities are endless here. But I am going to take a stroll to the driving range right now and see if I can get us some guests right now, because I think some people are warming up.
You want to ask whether or not these are people that we'd want to have on? Do they look in the sunlight to you?
You want them on, Dano. Don't worry about it.
Okay, well, it seems like a legitimate thing to worry about, that you might think you're bringing me Larry Fitzgerald, and instead I'm interviewing Afonso Ribeiro.
Yeah, but he has an open invitation here, Mike said.
Right.
He does, where he sold us out. There's going to be a lot of cool content on our social media channels and on the YouTube page, Le Batard and Friends. Make sure to subscribe. And also, I've been told by a lot of people, why should I subscribe to this? Well, if you've been paying attention to our streaming schedule, it's been inconsistent, kind of by design. The incentive to subscribing is we go live 15 minutes before we actually go live. You get a notification, so you'll be the very first to know if that show that day is live on YouTube. So please subscribe, and as a bonus, you're going to get a lot of cool content. I can already see Dan like, whoa, what do we get out of this now? Patience with us, because the tournament has not started yet. They're going to get a lot of great video in the can, and we're going to repurpose all of this footage across our platforms, on podcasts, and that YouTube page.
Are there a lot of media members there, guys? Because I'm looking at where you are, and you seem like you have some exclusive access there. It's not like everyone in the media is there. This isn't like Radio Row. You guys have infiltrated a celebrity circle here that not a lot of media members are in, correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. Joe Buck is here, but of course he's invited to play golf here. The Golf Channel's here covering the event. But in terms of media members, I think the only other media members that are here besides us playing in the tournament are Joe Buck. I think Jay Billis is playing in the tournament. And I think that's about it.
I mean working.
Yeah, it's only
it's us.
It's only NBC based people. So Michael Smith and Michael Hawley are here. They do a Peacock show. The Today Show is here. Yeah, Brother from Another it's called. And it's basically just NBC people, Golf Channel people, and that's it.
Are you smiling, Amin, because it's delightful to hear specifically Fancy Lad say Brother from Another that way?
Yes, and also because I almost called it Brother to Brother, which was the name of the fake show on Family Guy that featured Bryant Gumbel and Greg Gumbel solving crimes.
You're my brother.
Hit it with the laugh.
Ron Magill is with us now. We appreciate his flexibility. He is usually on Tuesdays, but we've had a lot of chaos around here. The animal questions, we never run out of them, and you really enjoy them. Forgive if at some point here there is an infiltration by a celebrity as we ask our animal questions, because Stugotz is just running over to the putting green and grabbing people. But before we get to whoever it is that Stugotz has grabbed, Ron Magill is here to take your animal questions from the group here. So, Amin, what do you have for Ron Magill, Zoo Miami's animal expert?
Ron, we often talk about how intelligent dolphins are, but if they had hands with opposable thumbs, would we think of them as smarter because they'd be able to build things and do things with their hands?
I think you would appreciate their intelligence more because they'd have much more flexibility in doing what they do. I don't know if you think of them as smarter, but you would appreciate their intelligence more.
Afonso Ribeiro, do you have an animal question that you've always wanted answered your entire life? Something about the animal kingdom, because we have an animal expert here, and I'm just curious, do you have a great many animal curiosities?
Well, in actuality, I host a new show for Nat Geo Wild called AFV Animal Edition. And on our show, we talked about how in the wild, rabbits actually shouldn't eat carrots because it's actually bad for them.
That's true. I mean, a lot of things that we feed animals, carrots, apples, that horses love to, too much of those natural sugars are not good for them.
Yeah. Like Bugs Bunny was a lie.
Well, see, now you didn't have to go that far. You're across the line there, Alfonso.
Bugs Bunny was a lie. He's a liar. He didn't. The rabbit. They don't eat the carrots. This is wrong. It's wrong.
We all have our vices, Alfonso.
Well, yeah.
Don't judge.
Coyotes don't go after roadrunners the way they did either. But you got to believe, Alfonso. You got to believe.
Well, it's for the kids. It's for the kids. The kids love the rabbits eating the carrots.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Are you shocked to learn that rabbits do not and should not eat carrots? I mean, you are a giant Fresh Prince guy, correct?
I am.
Right.
One of my favorite shows of all time.
You must be
delighted
to have Alfonso here as you've got a private audience.
I know. And I guess my question is how excited were you to do the reunion show that you guys had on HBO Max about a year ago?
It's funny. I always laugh at most people look at it as like a reunion. This was an actual reunion where we got together and talked about the show. But, people will say all the time, they're like, oh, they had another reunion. They had a reunion. It's like, no, we had lunch. It was like, it's not a reunion if you see people every day. We just don't publicize it every time. But the reunion special was nice. It was great to get together, be on the set, honor the late, great James Avery, talk about some of the things that we did as a show that other shows simply did not do. The cast actually had a voice, whereas 90% of the time, most casts don't actually have a voice on their own shows. They don't have a voice for their own character with the writing staff. The writers write it, and they basically show up and do the words. We sat down. We would talk about the experience, that we all had in our own lives. So we impacted a lot of our stories, and it was wonderful to be able to share that and share the fun that we had, shooting the show, decades ago.
Jessica, what do you have for Ron Magill of Zoo Miami?
I was going to ask Ron, I read that zoos are now starting to give COVID vaccines to animals in the United States. So are they getting Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J?
Neither. It's a separate company. I forget, it's like a Tesla. I forget the name of the company, but it's a separate type of vaccination. It's not a human-based vaccination. It's based on animals and experimental right now. Just a few zoos, Oakland, Denver, San Diego, they're doing it on an experimental basis on just animals that have been known to contract COVID. But keep in mind that none of the zoo animals that have contracted COVID, like the gorillas, lions, tigers, have suffered any serious consequences. None of them have died either, of course. So it's kind of interesting that none of these animals have suffered the severity of symptoms that we see in humans.
I know Mike wants to ask Afonso Ribeiro a question, but Ron, do you want to ask Afonso Ribeiro a question?
Well, one of the things I want to ask, not to ask, but I want to compliment AFV. On my weekends is my highlight, man, especially the animal videos, because the animal videos, they're unscripted. A lot of times I look at some of those videos and I go, okay, these guys playing this stuff. Come on, that didn't really happen. Why does that guy happen to have a camera on this guy when he's doing this? Come on, that's all planned. But the animals are not planned. And when the animals throw the people off, it is the best.
The animals are completely unscripted on the animal edition for Nat Geo Wild. I mean, we basically, you do have the pet videos, but you've got the in the wild, you got the zoo videos. Right. These videos are real. Like there's exactly. I'm having to narrate what's happening, but really those videos are very real. Some of the videos, on the ABC show would definitely be not scripted, but people will put their little things together and figure out a little funny skit. The way that I view it is this. It doesn't matter whether they've put it together or not. Was it funny?
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Did you laugh? I'm good.
We need that show because all I'm seeing lately is so much bad news. I get on a weekend, I put on those videos, and all of a sudden it's an escape. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. We'll be back in the fall.
There you go.
Great. So your weekends are packed there, Ron. Afonso, you're talking to a child of the TV syndication era. So in my childhood, you're like one of the most famous persons on the planet. And the fact that you're on this Zoom, I got to ask you, around the height of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which might have even been on a delay because of syndication, who was the biggest celebrity that you ever ran into that was just a diehard fan of the show, that was the coolest celebrity run-in you ever had?
That's actually a good question. I have no clue because, I've always been the guy who never really would get excited about other celebrities, right? It's like they do what I do. I don't, get freaked out. But there was once when it was after Fresh Prince and we were in Miami and Will and I and his family, we went out on a yacht and we pull up to a bigger yacht. And we're getting off the yacht, going onto the bigger yacht because we're going to go out and have a day. And I turn around and I have Willow in my hands, and I turn and I give Willow to somebody on the other boat so that we can do the transfer. And I handed her off to Tom Cruise. And I had that moment where I was like, hey man, here's Willow. And I turn back to Will. I say, hey man, the next time you bring me somewhere and you don't tell me that I'm going to be seeing Tom Cruise, I'm going to punch you in your face, okay? And it was just like, here's Tom Cruise. Hey, when he was with Katie. Hey, Katie, how you doing? All right, you was pregnant with Suri. All right, cool. And then we hung out. And then, cut to, if it was a TV show, you'd cut to us doing flips off the top deck into the ocean in Miami. It was one of those days.
Were you surprised how small he is?
I mean, he's still bigger than me, so I don't really,
Well, you're bigger than Larry Fitzgerald, according to Stugotz. Billy, what do you have?
Some people look down on other people. I look up at everybody, so it's okay.
Billy, what do you have for Ron Magill?
Ron, I like to go into my yard and show my daughter butterflies. Where do butterflies go when it rains?
They go under leaves. They go under leaves. They find shelter under leaves, under trees, under bushes, but they will, pretty much go to a place, close their wings to expose as little area as possible to the rain, and wait it out.
And here, I thought that question was for me, so I was confused.
We've got one for you. What do you got here, Roy?
Afonso, Fresh Prince was a Quincy Jones production. How influential was he on the show? And did you get geeked out ever meeting him?
Well, I had met Quincy many years before, having worked with Michael Jackson on the Pepsi commercial and knowing Michael. And so I had met Quincy back in 84, 85, which was, very special. So I was never really geeked out, but Quincy was the guy who was never fully involved in terms of on the creative side, in terms of weekly, right? He'd show up and it'd be like the Godfather walked onto the set, right? And it'd be like, Quincy's here. Where's Quincy? Oh, Quincy's here. Hi, Quincy. How you doing? Hey, good to see you. And Quincy would walk on and he would, bless us all, and then he would leave, and it would be great. So I never got geeked out by it, but of course it was, Quincy is Q is the man. So for all of us, we just were so excited every time we got to hang out with him and pick his brain. But he was never really part of the day to day on the show.
Ron, can a shark ever acquire the taste for human flesh?
Absolutely. They're carnivores. They don't necessarily distinguish between fish and mammals and humans. If it's protein, they'll eat it. So there's no question that a shark can acquire a taste for human flesh.
Right, but can there be one rogue shark, say off the coast of Massachusetts, that really likes the taste of human flesh after sampling it and then just goes exclusively hunting for human flesh?
No, I don't think you're going to get that kind of Jaws scenario where they go exclusively hunting for human flesh. There will be opportunistic feeders. They will get what is in front of them. If it happens to be a human or a sea lion, whichever they can get first, they're going to go for it.
I was going to ask, do you ever have a situation where the shark gets killed and then its offspring goes off on a vengeance spree?
Yeah, has that ever happened?
Alfonso, good talking to you. Thank you.
I don't know where this is going. I was like, I was like, y'all woke up this morning and thought these were the best questions?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you, Alfonso. Appreciate you being around.
I'm like, wait a minute. I listen to you guys all the time. What's happening today?
Thank you for being on with us, Alfonso.
Let me get this straight. So if a shark was in the water and it saw something that it liked, would it actually eat what it liked?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's right. We need to hear him off. Brother.
He's so right.
Well, interesting.
Hey, it's great to see you guys. I'm going to go hit some balls and try to win this thing this week.
Good luck, brother.
All right, guys.
Ron, what animal in the animal kingdom is most likely to avenge vengeance?
Animals like elephants, tigers. They remember being hunted or being trapped. So that's been documented. Elephants especially have been known to give out vengeance. I mean, go after people specifically when, herds have been poached or stalked or killed for whatever reason. Elephants have been known to go on rampages in villages and start taking out people.
Just to close the loop on sharks with vendettas.
Oh, here we go.
Dennis Quaid said every single frame of Jaws 3D, he is high on cocaine. That, like, it was just a bonkers cocaine motion picture. But it got me thinking about great white sharks in captivity, which has happened a couple of times. I actually went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and they had a very young great white shark there for over 100 days, and then it killed one of the other fish in the tank. Your stance on what the Monterey Bay Aquarium did, which is actually one of the more respected and incredible aquariums in the United States.
Listen, it's a very respected. They do incredible work at Monterey Bay. Having said that, white sharks should never be kept in captivity. They've never been able to keep one alive for any extended period of time. That one they had there was very young, like you said. There are animals that should never be in captivity. And I say that as a 41-year zoo professional, but there are animals that should never be in captivity. And sharks are one of them, as well as many pelagic animals, a lot of the whales, the cetaceans. They should never be in captivity. I'm sorry.
Ron, on the topic of cocaine, I was once told that drug sniffing dogs are actually made to be addicted to coke, and that's how they find the cocaine, because they're just fiends looking for it. Is this true? And if not, how do drug sniffing dogs get trained?
Drug sniffing dogs get trained just like any dog gets trained. If you're saying, how does a bloodhound find people? Because it gets addicted to people? No, that's not true. They don't get addicted to cocaine. They get taught to associate with a certain scent, and they get rewarded when they're shown that scent. It's basically just getting an animal. You can teach an animal to focus on something that it's good at doing. And dogs have incredible senses of smell. Some of them have better senses than others. And they can teach dogs to find things that way. Again, the reward is not the cocaine. When they sent out the cocaine, they don't get cocaine, okay? When they sent out the cocaine, they get something that they like as a reward. It's not cocaine. They're not hooked on cocaine. They're hooked on getting the reward they get from finding cocaine.
Ron, what animal that's not on display at the zoo were you surprised seeing making their way into the zoo?
What animal that is not on display at the zoo was I surprised seeing making its way into a zoo?
Yeah, it had to have been like a bird or something, right?
Like you mean just like an animal out of the wild coming into the zoo?
Yes.
Oh, God, here in Zoo Miami, we've got everything. We've got these massive iguanas. We had a bald eagle come in here and start eating like $500 koi fish out of the lake. It was fantastic. I loved it because the guy who was like in the koi, was like, oh my God, these are my prize fish. And this bald eagle on National System will come down and just grab these koi and fly away with them. I thought that was the best. We've had coyotes come into the zoo, all kinds of exotic lizards. I mean, because Miami is the freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? The place that everybody came from immigration in New York.
The Ellis Island.
Miami's the Ellis Island for exotic animals, and a lot of them you can find right here at the zoo coming in and out at their own accord.
Did they have to change their names?
How do you stop an eagle from getting all of your koi fish?
You don't, and that's the great thing about it. You got to watch nature take its course. He eventually went off and started doing some other things. I think the koi were not as appealing to him anymore. But at the time, the director of the zoo was like this koi fanatic. He had like names and stuff for the koi. It was like, oh my God. And listen, I've got nothing against koi. But
so wait a minute.
He got Sam. Oh, look at that. He got Sam. There goes Sam away. The talons of the eagle flying away into the journal. Oh my God. I thought it was worth like $1,000. No. You can't you're feeding the world's, our country's national symbol. You should be proud to give them some good sushi.
I saw a documentary on Keiko, the famous whale that played Willie in the Free Willy movies. Now, they tried to spend $25 million reintroducing Keiko to the wild, and it was actually a pretty cool study because off the coast of Iceland, he interacted with other whales in the wild, but he never actually took. And then he eventually died in a fjord in Norway. Was it worth it?
Listen, guys, and this is going to create a lot of controversy, which I know you guys like. Let me say for the record. I would never, ever support taking a killer whale out of the wild and putting it in captivity. And those whales that were just yanked out of the wild many years ago, that was one of the most horrific things ever done. Having said that, these whales that have been in captivity for decades, you cannot just say, oh, you know what, we're going to send them and put it out, be free. The millions of dollars that were spent to try to save that one whale, okay, because people were thinking with their hearts, not their heads, would have been much better spent trying to protect the whales that are already in the wild, create sanctuaries for them in the wild, protect those wild animals. Instead, people were trying to feed on the publicity of one whale, okay? And what happens is, let me put this in perspective. You have a whale that's been in captivity all of its life in a pool that basically is sterilized water, okay? And you're going to introduce it into an ocean fjord. And granted, okay, well, it's going to be something that's protected. But no, it's in the ocean fjord, which has got all kinds of, pathogens and parasites and stuff that this whale has not been able to build a normal resistance to because it's been raised in a sterile tank. Okay, though your heart is in the right place, you're exposing it to these things. It has not been socially adapted to these people. And people think, oh, they're smart, it's going to adjust right away. No, it's not going to happen. It's a cruel thing to do. We have to, not two wrongs don't make a right here. And the money that was spent for that was well-intended, but horribly spent. It could have been much better spent on real conservation than trying to appeal to people's hearts to make a point.
Poor Keiko. Thought he was a fjord explorer.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Like Ron, thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. If you want to support the things that Ron is involved in, you've got his endowment that you could lift up at your leisure, and also on Cameo, you can find Ron Magill if you want any personalized messages. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
So Jessica's head is in her hands because she's mortified but delighted by how bad that joke was.
Fjord Explorer.
No, I mean, like Keiko died in a fjord expedition.
Oh, God.
The absolute funniest thing to happen during that entire time, and I hope Juju catches the video, is just how overly schmoozy Stugotz was with Afonso Ribeiro. We got a glimpse at, you guys all saw that, right? Just over laughing in a way that was hugely uncomfortable. Afonso Ribeiro must have said the funniest thing anyone has ever heard because of how Stugotz jiggled his way through the Zoom laughing at it.
Keiko needed a Ford Escort. I guess he didn't have enough fjord focus. I lied earlier. It wasn't an expedition. He was on a fjord excursion.
I want to see you try to get a Mustang in there. Just try.
I heard that he was so sick that he needed a Ford blood transfusion.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my good God.
I feel like we've reached the fjord edge.
Oh!
Try one, Dan.
No, God, no.
We need a fjord escape.
I can't afford to. We do not know who's going to show up when. Over the next couple of days, we will be here and we will see who Stugotz ends up wrangling in with all of his charm and schmarm. He just hugged Afonso Ribeiro, who is shorter than Stugotz, which is hard to believe seeing that photo. If you have seen Stugotz, what do we think Stugotz is? We think Stugotz is 5'6"?
I'd say 5'5".
Yeah.
I'd say 5'5".
Are you surprised to see that Afonso Ribeiro looks shorter than Stugotz in this photo on our social?
Very, very surprised and shocked, although less so when I think about Afonso telling the story about meeting Tom Cruise and saying, I was looking up at him because everyone's taller than I am.
Tom Cruise is, I think, also 5'6", is he not?
I've got close to a foot on Tom Cruise, and I'll always look up to that man.
You were so delighted to hear Afonso Ribeiro say that his celebrity meeting on a bigger yacht, because of course it was a bigger yacht, was not only Tom Cruise, but then soon thereafter, of course, he and Afonso Ribeiro were doing flips off the yacht into the water, because of course they were.
Yeah, celebrity run-ins, I found, is a good question, because they all like to play it cool. But every now and then, there's a story that they try to impress other celebrities at parties with, and it's always a top-line celebrity. And it's usually Michael Jordan.
It's usually Tom Cruise, actually.
I mean, you can't. That's peak right there. That's tippy top of the pops.
I mean, you had one of the other things that we had go viral over the last couple of weeks is an interview with the author of that Nets book, Matt Sullivan. You had him on the show with Tom Haberstroh, and one of the many things that I found fascinating about that interview, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on our YouTube page, Le Batard and Friends, and it was something that we also ran on Tuesday so more people could get access to it. But one of the things that jumped out to me, and I am not stupid about these things, I have worked in this industry, was his unvarnished truth was so real. And he framed it against basketball reporters don't actually get access or do the job as well as they used to do it because of the layers of superstardom and power where these guys aren't as accessible as you think. I was surprised that even our foremost experts in the sport, the guys who are associated with basketball information and insight, that they don't get a clean look at this. I was surprised that he was getting so much closer to the access, the power, and the idea of something that I hadn't heard, which is the Nets are run by Kevin Durant. You told me off air that what the Nets do in terms of housing women or getting B&Bs for players and that's not uncommon. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit across the league. That wasn't one of the shocking things that I learned talking to Matt. I think the most interesting thing was when I asked Matt, well, how'd you get it? And his answer was like, yeah, I asked. I thought there was going to be some back channel where I actually went to college with the guy that runs his da-da-da, and the guy vouched for me. Matt was like, no, I'd come to a few Nets games and I'd ask questions that weren't basketball related. And so those guys lit up and answered them. And so then when I approached them and said, I want to embed myself and write a book, they were like, yeah, let's do it. And it never occurred to me that you could just ask and get access like that. But he did, and kudos to him. I think he wrote a tremendous book.
Mike, were you surprised by the specifics of what I'm saying, that even the foremost authorities on the sport that you're used to getting your information from, this guy got a good deal closer to the real truth of what is happening around these guys than everything you're getting fed and spoon-fed daily by the thing that made me start thinking about is, what do you mean Rachel Nichols is talking to LeBron's top advisor as a confidant? And one of the many things in that story that skated, because I don't know how hard that Mendelsohn's life is about to get, but you are LeBron's guy and you're his white guy and you're exhausted by the Black Lives Matter movement? Like, I would be surprised if, given how LeBron and his guys do business, if that skates in a way that doesn't fracture trust, to have that dude who's been in their life for a while because he was around the Miami stuff and he is very much a gatekeeper and a power broker, that the guy who ran alongside Schwarzenegger and LeBron would say that he's exhausted by the Black Lives Matter movement. One of the many things in that article that skated as we were sitting here obsessing over two women and the soap opera.
I thought that was the fairest criticism of our conversation, is that people ask, well, you guys didn't mention You didn't talk about Adam Mendelsohn. And I said, you know what? You're right. We didn't. What we had to unpack obviously was an hour's worth of real complicated stuff, but I can only speak from my perspective. I've never met Adam. I've never spoken to him. I didn't know his name until I read that article. So I really have no insight as to him as a person. I speak about Rachel because I know Rachel. I don't know Adam. I don't know his sense of humor. I don't know any of that stuff. So I'm kind of tapping out on that part because I just don't know any better.
And to Amin's point, a lot of people learned his name in that article, in an article that's chock full of names that you recognize. And if you don't know exactly how to talk about someone, you just avoid doing it because you're comfortable talking about the names that you're familiar with. In fact, an interesting thing that happened is the pivot is, well, LeBron's got to answer for what Adam said. And it's just like, okay, so the skating of Adam continues.
The layers to this that I found interesting, and there were a number of them. I'm interested in how LeBron and Mav Carter, who are building an empire that is going to echo beyond basketball, a media powerhouse, that guy saying that thing while at the epicenter of that team. I'm curious how that one lands with, what do you mean you're exhausted by Black Lives Matter? Like, what the hell do you even mean? That's one layer of it. But the other layer that I found interesting is, oh, that's how the access works. But the access isn't real. Matt Sullivan's giving you real access. The other access is the access that LeBron and his media empire wants you to have. And so I found Matt Sullivan saying the specifics of these basketball writers don't cover this sport right. These basketball writers don't actually have the access to give you the truth. I found that to be interesting, even as someone who has spent 30 years in this business.
But doesn't that go back before this era, way back to Michael Jordan freezing out Sports Illustrated forever because of a cover that they did that he didn't approve of, right? And our friend Michael Wilbon, with a Hall of Fame career, but a lot of those beginnings were him and his proximity to Michael Jordan and his access to Michael Jordan, but also a very toothless, there weren't any really deep dives or critical.
No, we've made fun of Wilbon for years for he'll never say a negative syllable about Michael Jordan.
Right. But that's, I guess my point is, this isn't something in this new era of these basketball journalists don't do it. I think that's kind of been the story in sports. And that's why the people who do write critically, in depth, behind the scenes, and with a level of access are usually people who are writing books and not covering it on a day-to-day. That's what makes Ethan Strauss's book, The Victory Machine, so interesting, because he was a guy who covered the team day-to-day, and then he wrote a book about it based on his access on a day-to-day. But rather than reporting it along the way, he just saved it all and wrote it in a book.
Sam Smith wrote a book about Michael Jordan as a beat writer as well, and Amin is right when he says that, Michael Jordan viewed it as a great betrayal that one of the beat writers had written something that had some unvarnished truth in it. Mike, did you find any of that interesting? There were a number of things interesting in what it is that Matt Sullivan was saying.
I think the most interesting thing for me is who's Matt Sullivan? Is learning. He burst onto the scene with these scoops on scoops and finding out exactly how easy it was. I think we even discussed it in what went out. It's like, is this real? Like, this all seems too good to be true.
Durant didn't deny any of it. You've noticed that? None of it's, not a word has been denied.
Oh, it has to be reputable because the stuff that's been out for weeks would have already been categorically denied. And no one is doing that to Matt Sullivan. So it's just a fascinating announcement to everybody in the sports media industry that, holy shit, pal. This is an amazing book, chock full of scoops.
I am curious. I'm asking the audience this because I know the audience gets tired of me doing South Beach sessions, asking Howard Bryan about the decay of journalism. And I know that no one finds journalists more interesting than journalists. So I get why it is that you guys would tap out when I go down some of these paths. But when I tell you that what you're watching on ESPN is infomercials to get you to the games, that all of the programming is infomercials that get you to the games. And when I tell you that the glory days of ESPN, while it had journalistic conflicts with its league partners, they were aspiring to do journalism. And then I tell you, they meet that moment the other day, and the first voice you hear on behalf of the company is Kendrick Perkins. after Rachel Nichols apologizes. And I further tell you, hey, everyone that you think is an authority in that sport on the team of this time didn't tell you what Matt Sullivan just told you in paragraph after paragraph about what that team actually is and just how much Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving run the whole place. Because of course they do. Because you have to give the keys to the kingdom over. And you know who notices this? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers looks at this and is like, I'm going to leave now, because look at what they're doing across sports. They have to, in basketball, give the power to the guys who are the economies and are underpaid because there's a salary cap. And so the greatest mutation of that in our lifetime of the super team and the player empowerment is this team where the Nets have just said, you know what? You guys run it. But I also find fascinating, you're not seeing any of that unless you read it in a guy's book that we haven't heard of, as a whole lot of people feed on this trough as information people who aren't giving you the real and actual information. I found that fascinating as a journalist, but I don't blame the audience if they're like, ho-hum. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to consume the empty calories. I don't care if the information is biased. I don't care if it's inaccurate. I don't care if it's traded or compromised. Just give me information, however it is that you get the information, even if you have to lean against LeBron's advisor who's exhausted by the Black Lives Matter movement and Me Too.
Who's the last journalist that burst on the scene like that? Was it Sarah Ganim with the Penn State scandal? But I think you can understand how she came across that story. This is a story that's available to loads of reputable basketball insiders with, as you said, a team that defines possibly an era of basketball given the stars that they have on the team. Matt Sullivan got it. Matt Sullivan.
Yes. It was just that simple.
How about that, though? How about that for just where we've arrived, where you see on one side, hey, worldwide leader in sports. What's missing over here? Just a dude who asked. Barrett Sports Media has landed an interview with Mark Schlereth, and the question was the following. Mike Ryan, I believe the first time I remember publicly you putting on what I would describe as your big boy pants is when you went straight into the buzzsaw that was Mark Schlereth, and he came over to you and said, do we have a problem here on Twitter? I don't remember where that started. Look, Amin is shocked by that. His mouth is hanging open. But Mark Schlereth, our show, has had tension with him for a long time. And now Barrett Sports Media says the Man 101 bits are hilarious. What do you think about Dan Le Batard taking shots at those bits of yours? And this is Mark Schlereth's response. Dan Le Batard, I don't care. He can do whatever he wants. If that helps his show, great. I feel like that's insincere. It's always funny because anytime I put a Man 101 up there, I see a bunch of people tagging Le Batard, but whatever, it doesn't affect me. It's kind of the old lions don't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep.
That's us.
I don't care. My hobby is landscaping. It's what I do. I'm constantly in my yard working. This part's great. I'm competitive. I'll let all my neighbors know. You're getting your ass kicked in yard care right now. I've occasionally left notes on my neighbors' doors from my lawn to their lawn. Like, are you okay? You look sick over there. Things are great on my side. I'm a gracious loser, but I'm a terrible winner. I'll let you know about it. But Le Batard, he can do whatever he wants. I've done a show once or twice. I don't have a relationship with a guy. I don't really know the guy, but whatever floats their boat is fine with me. It gives me more views and more likes and more people watching my stuff, then that's great.
That is great.
I poop success, and it's because I hustle for that muscle. I do so because of the fine man at Mark Schlereth's Man 101. You need an app to meet women? What tarnation? We don't need Tinder. We've got timber. It's when you chop down a tree. Swipe right. More like swipe the sweat right off your brow. Catching Pokemon with your phone. We don't have Pokemon. We've got Pokebear. Word of advice, don't. Can't run with the big dogs, stay on the porch. Mark Schlereth, Man 101. You're welcome.
What's the matter, Mike? You look like did you enjoy that? Are you wincing? Do you feel like already that has fallen out of favor with you? We did about 20 of them.
No, we did about 20 of them, probably 15 too many. I actually want to play some of Katie Nolan's Woman 101 too, if we can. But there's some good joke writing there, guys. I stand by. We don't have Pokemon. We have Pokebear. Word of advice, don't.
What I have thrown on Mike Ryan's lap here is I have asked for all of the 101s we have, all of them. Schlereth's, yeah. I've asked for Katie Nolan's. I have asked for our Man 101s, and so I just want to throw them all in the face of the audience. What are you saying from behind that mask back there, Billy?
I'm just, making an observation. It seems like everyone is just playing golf in Tahoe now, so I don't think we're going to be getting any more guests from there today.
I love the symbolism of the chairs being empty. I see that no one is there, and our only guest from Tahoe, as we send an army of people, is Afonso Ribeiro. It's perfect.
I mean, I don't feel like I'm doing any snitching because I'm just looking at social media, but I saw Whitty's by a lake. Greg and Chris seem to be just at the driving range playing golf right now.
Yeah, we paid for a trip so that Stugotz could get Afonso Ribeiro.
Well, he's nowhere to be found right now.
So good. Play all the 101s. Just rapid fire. Throw them all at the audience's face. I can't believe we got the Katie Nolan ones from ESPN.
Ladies, we must do everything in our power to fight toxic masculinity. For the men in our lives, for us, for the future of society. But until then, take advantage of the fact that if you fart at the bar, no one will think it was you. You've heard of Mark Schlereth's Man 101. This is Katie Nolan's Woman 101. Tickets are going now for just 79 to 82 cents on the dollar, depending on your industry. Katie Nolan's Woman 101. You're welcome.
The music.
It is very happy. It's chipper music.
Do you find yourself having feelings for Megan Rapinoe that you're not quite sure how to classify? Hi, I'm Katie Nolan, founder of Katie Nolan's Woman 101, a seminar for women who are offended when people refer to Sidney Crosby as Cindy Crosby, because they know deep down that Cindy Crosby would cry a lot less. We'll order brunch and answer life's toughest questions, like, why do they even make scented tampons? Who's buying those? On purpose. Katie Nolan's Woman 101. No, thank you.
Oh, yes, that requires the layer of Schlereth is always saying you're welcome to us for some reason, because he thinks that he's imparting the advice that's going to make our lives better, I suppose.
Yeah, we're grateful to him for it.
Do we have a problem here? I know I've got a few, paper straws being one of them. If you're sick of the wussification of America, if you know Steve Largent wouldn't be caught dead sporting diamond earrings and a blonde mohawk, then Mark Schlereth's Man 101 is the place for you. By now, you already know about our clanging and banging program that consists of throwing your own weight around and carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. But it might surprise you to learn we have a calisthenics program. And by that, I mean you simply must pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Oh, what's that? Are you tired? Sweat is just your fat crying. Mark Schlereth's Man 101. You're welcome.
The ones he does always make me smile. He is absolutely more of a man than I am. I won't even dispute it. He can do things in his yard that I have not even contemplated doing.
He made a compost bin, and he didn't look at the instructions. I barely know what a compost bin is.
He saw a bunch of inflatable rafts around his pool, got upset, went and bought a bunch of pipe and made out of just went to the store and made something to clean up his pool area and constructed it himself.
I like his philosophy of not reading the instructions until after he screws up. if he screws up.
Do you have any from him there, from Mark Schlereth's Twitter account?
Yeah, I do, but you know what? They're not as funny as the Man ones that we produced.
Are you on the tweeter? Do you like Snapchat filters making your face look like a putty tat? Well, buck up and fix yourself at Mark Schlereth's Man 101. Oh, you want to play Fortnite? We've got Fortnite. It's an actual Fortnite. 2 weeks in a real fort with nothing but water and the grip and fear that you don't have what it takes. Here at Man 101, Northwestern football coach Pat Fitzgerald will literally cut off your hand if you so much as take your phone out to check the time. Instagram stories. I've got a story for you. Once upon a time, Ronnie Lott cut off a finger so he could check back into a football game. The end. Mark Schlereth's Man 101. You're welcome.
Wait. The last time we talked about the Man 101s, I thought the Dan Le Batard Schlereth relationship was like more tongue-in-cheek, but I guess hearing this interview, he's not in on the joke so much. And back in May, the last time we talked about this, he tweeted, "My bride is out of town, so I made a well-balanced meal, buffalo ribeye served with a topside sirloin," and posted a picture of a sirloin with a knife and a fork, and a ton of people tagged me in it because it was after I said I don't use knives when I eat steak, and I replied and I said, "Real men don't need a knife." And he never replied to it or liked it.
You've been stuck.
And now I understand.
Yes, you are stuck in the swirl now.
Wait, were these the real ones or are these the jokes?
Ladies, when a man says, "Well, actually," do you instantly get your period? Do you definitely always totally watch the WNBA? Never miss a game, wouldn't dream of it? It's like so important to you? Then Katie Nolan's Woman 101 is the seminar for you. Learn such valuable skills as crying discreetly on public transportation, writing a work email without an exclamation point, and how to not poop. Katie Nolan's Woman 101. Seriously, I have not pooped since 1995.
You don't want to give anybody the context of Schlereth in his natural environment, in the wilderness of his yard, making things and talking about making things and saying very masculine things.
2019 is different, and it's confusing. Nowadays, when you refer to a woman as legs, they look at you funny. We all know it ain't right. But even attendees at Mark Schlereth's Man 101 need to know there are just certain things you can't say in the modern age. It's why we're proud to announce our sensitivity training. It's where if you're too sensitive, you can kick rocks. Actual rocks. As big as Bruce Bochy's head. Workplace compliance. Fine. We brought in the short guy from that bagel shop. He'll teach you. Mark Schlereth's Man 101. You're welcome.
2019 time capsule there.
Oh, that
the
guy.
short guy from the bagel shop.
He had a shining moment. That guy, he was so angry. Didn't he parlay that into like some dating life that he then had after a reality dating show after getting angry in a bagel shop?
I think he bailed on a celebrity boxing event, and that was the last we heard of Bagel Bro.